You're listening to Power Athlete Radio, a podcast dedicated to empowering your performance every damn day. Join former NFL pro and Power Athlete founder John Welborn as he dissects the greatest minds in strength, conditioning, and more. So whether your goal is to be the hammer, destroy mediocrity, or simply move the dirt, you've come to the right place. Now with the warm-up done, let the gains begin.
Power Athlete Nation, I have a very cool podcast in store for you today with a good friend of mine, Dr. Phillip Yoo. Doc Yoo spent over 30 years conducting hands-on research around the world on pain and performance. He holds a PhD in stem cell research, and he is an undergraduate from Michigan State and a postgraduate degree from the National University of Health Sciences in Chicago. He's also done a ton of continuing education seminars at Harvard Medical School. He's had an amazing journey. While working as a medical missionary in Central America, he experimented with combining prolotherapy and acupuncture. He then ran pain clinics in Korea, where he treated Air Force and Special Forces generals. And then he also went to Beijing to treat athletes in 2008 for the Olympics. He runs multiple clinics in Southern California that treat patients with lasers and biologics, like stem cells and exosomes, and a bunch of stuff that we're going to get through in this podcast. Doc Yoo has been a good friend of mine for a number of years, as I'd mentioned. That all started when he made the fatal mistake of walking into CrossFit Balboa many years ago on a Saturday. Ever since then, we've been fast friends. I'm stoked to get him to fly out to Austin and sit here in the podcast room and record this episode of Power Athlete Radio. Dr. Phillip Yoo. Hey, welcome to another episode of Power Athlete Radio. I'm John Welborn, and I'm joined by my good friend, old friend, longtime friend, Dr. Phil Yoo. Thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me, man.
It's always dope when we get a chance to do in-person podcasts. The Zoom, I don't know. I'm a little over Zoom. It's 2023, almost 2024, and the Zoom's a little broken. But I don't know if you saw this. Joe Rogan had Mark Zuckerberg on the podcast. He was talking about one of the biggest hurdles he had with virtual reality was getting people to encode memories. That you need 3 dimensions for encoding memories, and 2 dimensions doesn't cut it. So they're trying to find a way to make it 3-dimensional so that the memories start kind of compacting.
Like a hologram type thing.
And at that point, I realized when I do a podcast on Zoom, I get done and I remember maybe 10% of it.
Yeah.
And so people will hit me up with questions all the time about specific things I said on the podcast, and it's only the in-person ones that I really remember. And now I just blame it on Mark Zuckerberg for not allowing 2 dimensions to encode us.
Yeah, pretty much. You need that 4D interaction, I guess.
Yeah. So this is exciting. One, I've known you for a number of years. I mean, we met actually through CrossFit Balboa, which I don't know if you've known what happened to CrossFit Balboa.
Well, didn't Ben Oliver take it over?
He did. And he had a guy who knock on the door, pay him a certain amount of dough just to get the fuck out. Because we went through a pretty arduous process to get a CUP, conditional use permit, to put a gym where we did over in West Side Costa Mesa.
Yeah.
The problem today is now it cost me like $40,000 to do the permit. Now that permit's like $300,000, and they don't give them out anymore.
Yeah.
Because when we got it, the micro gym was relatively unknown. Now everybody wants a micro gym. So a guy came in, paid him for the spot, told him to take all of his equipment, all the members, and just get out. And the guy turned it into like Alpha Extreme Gym. He must have dropped $2 or $3 million into that facility.
Wow.
I mean, it's got lights and Lambo parking and equipment and showers and this entire amazing place.
Is it like an elevator music gym or hardcore?
Dude, it's like one of those influencer gyms that you would go to just to do your Instagram reels. And it's like, has like the hexagon lights in the roof and all the stuff. You could drop
your weights, you could yell. Okay.
I mean, it's nothing. I mean, like
all those gyms are gone.
Well, I mean, Joey Swole goes in there and does all of his training stuff, and all these just dime piece Instagram girls are in there just doing nothing but booty blaster all day. So looks like a pretty nice gym, I'm sure, and then of course, like the guy in the promo, like pulls his Lambos in, because you got to park your Lambo in the gym, and you're not really a gym bro until you have a Lambo. So which is what I'm struggling with. I can't have a Lambo down a dirt road here in Texas.
They should convert. I'm in Tustin by that old Marine base, or actually naval base. Those huge hangars. They look like alien.
My favorite Whole Foods in the world is in that Tustin marketplace.
Yeah.
So we would go to that Whole Foods. It's like the biggest Whole Foods on the planet. And just wander around. They'd have like chocolate fountains and every cut of meat. I'd take my kids there on Saturdays just to wander around and look at all the crazy shit.
Yeah, I mean, they should convert those into something like a huge gym or some facility, indoor football arena or something, Yeah.
Well, don't they use those to film car commercials?
Well, they're national monuments. They're not going to tear them down. Corvette, they did some type of event there during the pandemic. We should have went, but they had movies in there, like a drive-in thing, but we missed out. Goodyear blimp goes in there for maintenance. Pretty cool. They used to store helicopters there in Vietnam. So
I one time I drove by, they were filming car commercials.
Yeah, I always lived by a military base. When I lived in Korea, I lived by in Yongsan, the 8th Army. And then the Osan Air Base, lived right next door, and I'm next to Marine Base.
Well, isn't that where they built the like the big blimps, like the big?
Yeah, the Zeppelins. I think so. I'm not sure.
I think there's something tied to like the Zeppelins or the blimps like or something they have. But I think they're super cool. There was always a rumor that they were going to convert them into housing.
Well, around there's a bunch of neighborhoods around there.
No, but I know. But my brother lives, or he used to,
Columbus Grove next door.
Yeah, he still owns a home in Irvine. He rents it, but now he lives out, on the Back Bay where all the big ballers live. But there was always this like pitch where they were going to turn it into this like almost like a, massive apartment, a condo thing, kind of like you see in China where they just have these massive skyscraper high rises with like 10,000 people in it. That was always the pitch.
Yeah. It is kind of getting too condensed there. I wish they'd built like a park back there, but it's all neighborhoods, and that's why it was like cool coming here because, the burbs is like nice, but this is like real America. You're in the countryside.
I was going to say,
welcome. You got a whole compound here.
Welcome to freedom. Yeah. Welcome to the Freedom States.
Yeah, it's sort of like a real ranch, know. Yeah.
Well, and you can carry guns around. You can do whatever you want here.
Yeah, I feel like the Korean cowboy already.
All right, so. Just to give the audience a little bit of backstory, I met Doc Yoo obviously through the gym, but he reached out, obviously, as you guys are maybe familiar, maybe not, I played in the NFL at one point in another life. Doc Yoo, chiropractor by trade, but gone far past that with, lasers and stem cells and exosomes and all the other cool stuff we're going to discuss. But you were working with an NFL player that had a pretty severely herniated disc. I remember it was something crazy, like 7 millimeters.
Yeah.
And he was having terrible back pain. I think the team or something shipped him out to you. Yeah. And you were doing a bunch of cool laser stuff to get the disc to abate.
Yeah, I mean, he played offensive tackle for the Eagles. He was younger than you. That's after you retired. Yeah. And he worked with Chris Peduzzi, the trainer that you worked with there, the athletic trainer. So I got referred. And at that time, we did a lot of laser and decompression. And we'd reduce his 8 millimeter herniated disc, sciatica, knocked his sciatic pain away. He decided not to go back in the NFL, but, for a guy that's like, 6'6", 320, to decompress a disc without surgery, that was like, wow, this stuff works.
Yeah.
Now, that was before we even implemented the stem cells.
Well, I know, and you were just doing laser, cold laser, and a bunch of different lasers. And what was fascinating was when you brought the guy to me, I could tell you exactly why his discs were herniated.
Yeah.
He was by far one of the shittiest movers and had some of the worst mechanics of anybody I've worked with that's at that level.
Yeah.
He was, knock-kneed internally, internal rotation, pronation this way, dumping. I mean, everything about the technique that he was taught was something that just led to injury and a very, very short career. So I actually remember telling him, your fucked up feet, your terrible foot position, your terrible knee position, your hips, your back, everything, it's not your fault that this is the technique. Now, here's the hilarious part. I don't know who taught him that technique, but if I had done that technique, I would not have played 10 years.
Yeah.
And so it just makes you believe. And he came from Nebraska, I think.
Yeah.
Which was a high-level school. So to be, have a coach you in what I like to call an absolute dog shit form of technique, that was a shitty deal. But what was fascinating was once we started cleaning up his technique and teaching him some movement and actually getting his hips stronger and a little bit of mobility in both in his hips and his ankles. And then with the work you were doing, he ended up getting out of pain. I think what happened was he had been in pain for so long that the minute he wasn't, I don't think he wanted to go back into the crucible. We interrupt this episode with a shameless self-promotion. Power Athlete delivers battle-tested performance programming for every kind of athlete. So do you want to go from average Joe to MVP? Then dominate with Field Strong. Get stacked and jacked with Jack Street. Hustle in life and still build muscle with Grindstone. Fear no opponent with Dragon Slayer. Be harder than coffin nails with Hammer. Max out minimal equipment with Lean Enable. Or unlock those newbie gains with Bedrock. Get over to powerathletehq.com/training and choose your 7-day free trial right here, right now. Get lifting, get training, get in shape, all while listening to the rest of this show.
Yeah. That being said, you mentioned Nebraska. So you had that trainer. She was from Nebraska, right? It was what was her name? Kylie, whatever.
Kelly?
Kelly, yeah. She went there.
Well, no, Kelly was from the East Coast, D.C., Virginia.
All right. Well, anyways.
She's a cop in Seattle now.
Well,
yeah.
So remember that one time you visited, right? And then the other former NFL veteran was there, and we got a picture together.
Yeah.
And you didn't realize that you both went to Cal Berkeley because he was quarterback, and then Vince Ferragamo, right?
Yeah.
Then he got transferred to Nebraska, and he ended up being the quarterback for the Rams. And I think he played the Steelers one year in the Super Bowl.
Who, Vince Ferragamo?
Yeah.
My granddad was a huge Rams fan, and Vince Ferragamo was his favorite player.
Yeah.
So
and here
it was pretty neat.
Picture, not realizing, you both went to Cal. It's pretty cool.
Well, it's.
But I treated him too for his sciatica. Yeah.
Well, and this is. I hear this debate constantly, especially within the NFL circles and the fans and this. There's always this idea of like, the game is so much faster and more violent today. And I'm like, that's not true at all. The players are bigger. Yeah, the players are bigger because they're rested more. The players are moving faster because they're not injured because they took away a big part of the practice load. But the durability of the players that played in those eras far outclipses what we see today. Yeah. I mean, Tom Brady said it himself. Like, the only reason I got to play 20 years was they changed the rule in year 10. Yeah. I was done.
Yeah.
If they didn't change the rules, I wasn't going to get another 10, and he had a chance to have 3, Hall of Fame careers. But because of it.
He wasn't the best runner. He would have been just slammed.
Dude, all you have to do is go back and look at the hits that Troy Aikman took in those first 2 seasons before they invested in offensive line and brought in, Tuanay and Nate Newton and Larry Allen and brought in all those studs in Dallas. Back when Dallas was actually a good team, not whatever the hell they got going now.
Yeah.
Did you see that ass kicking of the Niners? Oh, my God.
Yeah.
Christian McCaffrey went off. Living here in Texas, the Texas UT Dallas fans are the most delusional fans on the planet. UT's winning a national championships, and Texas is going to the Super Bowl every year. And even though UT was pretty good, we went to a game. They ended up losing to Oklahoma, which was a little shady in some of the calls. But, they went out and bought themselves a good team. I'm excited to see what Texas can do. But Dallas, I am ecstatic to see Dallas lose. I used to beat the shit out of them all the time when I was with the Eagles, and I'm still not a Dallas fan.
Well, dude, I grew up in Detroit. We finally have a pretty good year,
dude,
man.
I'm excited about Detroit.
I think they're going all the way, man. We've never won a Super Bowl. This is the year.
I like their coach.
Yeah.
I like the way they play. I like that Goff's got a big chip on his shoulder. They did the trade for him.
They got an awesome culture there, man.
Yeah.
Dan, man, he could play himself. Man, the guy's jacked. You know?
It's exciting to see Detroit actually field the team. For a long time. But it can happen. Cincinnati got whatever stink was off them. I never thought anybody would ever win Cincinnati, and now they've gone on. They bring in, Joe Burrow, and next thing you know, they're playing in the Super Bowl. So it just goes to show you that eventually a team will get the right players, get the right coach, put the right system together.
The right culture, man.
And then look, and who would have thought after all the argument, is it Brady, is it Belichick, seeing Brady leave and now all of a sudden seeing Belichick, what did they score 2 points in the last 2 games? And seeing how bad, Shannon Sharp, who's generally considered, Shannon Sharp, generally considered one of the dumbest people I've ever met. He even had to say, I got to apologize to Brady. For a long time, I was harping that Belichick was the answer. Brady leaves, he goes to Tampa, wins the Super Bowl, and Belichick can't win a game.
Yeah, there you go. Well, you played for Brady for a season, right?
Yeah, I played for Belichick and with Brady. Yeah, I always liked Tom. He was always
down to earth.
He was always great. Anybody that's ever said anything bad about him, I'm like, you never met the guy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So but I knew him socially before I went to go play there, and then got hurt in that last preseason game and didn't get an opportunity. But ironically, the guy that was playing was the position that gave up the hit that ended up tearing Brady's ACL. This episode of Power Athlete Radio is powered by Train Heroic, the most immersive strength training app experience on the market. We've built an online training business by partnering with Train Heroic to deliver all of our world-class training programs like Jack Street, Hammer, Field Strong, and Grindstone. To learn which Power Athlete training program best suits your goals, head to powerathletehq.com/training. And if you're a coach looking to build a business with the best training tech in the business, head to trainheroic.com/powerathletehq. And now back to the show.
Oh man.
So
you're talking about durability, how the guys in the past, they just, they had more grit in a sense, like Vince Lombardi type football. This isn't football back then. You play with a broken toe, a broken arm, whatever. But, so, Roman Gabriel, he was quarterback for the Rams 17 years. Well, his son is Roman Gabriel III. He's my friend. And he was telling me about his dad, all the hits he took, and he's pretty much disabled now. But
how old is he? He's got to be in his 70s, right?
He's 80s. Yeah,
He's
his
80s.
dad, yeah. His son's like just turned 60 or so. His son played for the Raiders, got hurt, but then ended up playing for the USFL. Anyways, he was telling stories how...
Yeah, he's 83.
Yeah.
Yeah, wow, shit.
Yeah, he's saying back then there's no rules to protect the quarterback. And for his dad to last 17 years back then, and the average lifespan of NFL starters, 2 to 3 years,
Yeah, it's
something to say.
Well,
yeah.
So the number's confusing.
Yeah.
They always say it's 3 years,
Yeah.
but it's not really the case.
Yeah.
It's one of those jobs where if you can do it, you can do it for a long time. If you can't, you're out of there real quick.
Yeah.
It's like the world's greatest meritocracy. Like if you can't do it, they don't keep you around.
Yeah.
There's I even remember in my 10th year, my knee was dinged up, and I remember thinking like, hey, maybe I could just be like a good quality backup and help the young guys and like be like a good veteran influence. No, they're like, dude, you're starting, you're not fucking here. So didn't work.
Then you're talking about the durability and the current, functional movement patterns that, a lot of current athletes lack. Didn't one team one year, they got rid of all the free weights and put machines in, but then they got injured the next year, and
so
they went back to free weights,
Yeah, man, there's strength coaching in the NFL is arduous because you're taking the world's greatest athletes and you can't get them hurt in the weight room.
Yeah.
And all you have to do is make sure they're strong and stable and physically in good enough shape to be able to go and survive. So you're not really developing people. So when I went to Philadelphia, Mike Wolf, Tom Canavy were my strength coaches. They used a Penn State high-intensity model. Yeah. It was a whole bunch of equipment, one set to failure, kind of old school, Nautilus, Mike Metzner style of training.
Yeah.
Pretty good for putting on muscle. You create hypertrophy, one set to failure, 45 minutes in, 45 minutes out.
2-3 times a week? That's it, yeah.
And follows the Mike Metzner high-intensity deal.
Yeah.
I think it's pretty good for hypertrophy. Not very good for athletic development.
No.
So, but you're talking about players that are already at the top of the peak.
Yeah.
So why do you have to physically develop them? So for me, I still needed to develop. I knew that staying in that training system all year round wasn't going to benefit me. It would be great for the in-season, but not for the off-season. So I trained with a guy named Rafael Weiss down in Tampa. And Rafael, who's an absolute level 99 wizard for this stuff, I really credit for a lot of my success. And a lot what you see within, CrossFit football and power athlete and the methodology and the way I understand movement really was steeped in that kind of training environment.
Perfect balance of, you got your lean mass, but you want the functional mobility as well.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and I was also real fortunate to work with a guy named Todd Rice in college. Coach Rice, who was my strength coach, he's the private strength coach for the Busa brothers.
Yeah.
So he trains them and got hired by their dad, and he basically is why, and those guys are two of the highest paid, best players out there.
Yeah, I think the combine, it's like they need to get rid of the bench press. It's not really good functional movement,
But if you would have seen how excited the scouts, who are these just like, I make $10,000 a year, I live in my car eating Twinkies and drinking and drinking energy drinks.
Yeah. For
those dudes to have their moment, that's the bench press.
Yeah.
For like the lowest level catfish on the planet, those guys love it. So that's why it still exists. So when we first met, you were, doing all this really interesting outside of the box stuff with lasers and working with pain and back stuff. But that's really evolved.
Yeah.
In the 10 plus years that we've known each other, I've seen your kind of practice go to here to now all of a sudden using all these different biologics that are really at the forefront of not only longevity, performance, health and wellness, and
anti-aging.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I know you're deep into it, and you brought a book that you just got done working on. So I wanted to kind of dive in a little bit on not only stem cells, exosomes, peptides, some of the Russian stuff we've been talking about, but really just dive into this idea of biologics and how, because this is so big in terms of human performance for, not only football players, but fighters and, people listening to this podcast are dealing with injuries or, want to train or want to live their best life into their 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s.
Yeah. So basically, when I had that clinic in Costa Mesa down the street from your gym, I was doing traditional CrossFit, and then that horde workout Murph where you got a 20-pound rucksack on, then you do 100 kipping pull-ups, a mile run.
No, it was a mile run.
300 push-ups
No,
or something?
it's a mile run, 100 pull-ups, 200 push-ups, 300 air squats.
And then another mile run, yeah.
Did you know Mark Zuckerberg did that in sub 30 minutes?
What?
With a weighted vest?
Really?
That's what he claimed.
That's funny.
Yeah, I mean, his the time he claimed would have put him slightly between like Rich Froning and whoever the other guy is that won the CrossFit Games.
Yeah.
It would have put him in
I saw that
top 5.
meme of like him, fighting Elon Musk who would win, so yeah.
Well, it's I like to call it alien versus lizard people.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure Musk is an alien and he's a lizard person.
Yeah,
so
there you go.
I don't know if you guys heard that there's a whole secret race of lizard people that live underneath that control everything. Jake, have you heard of this? Like the secret lizard people that live underneath that control everything?
Reptilians.
Yeah, the reptilian people. Okay. All right. Well, I'm glad you know about it. Yeah, you're going to cut that one into a pretty good viral cut. Be like, have you heard about the reptiles that live underground? They're the reptilian people. All right. So I'm real good on getting off fucking deal, but just get into the basics for it. What are stem cells and why? Why when people throw this out, they almost act like it's the panacea. It's going to fix it. Oh, I'm going to get these stem cells, but all stem cells aren't created equal, and not everybody's using the same tech you are. So what sets it apart, and really what are people hoping for with stem cells?
Yeah. So when I was doing that Murph exercise, I tore my labrum here. It was a slap tear, and I tore my biceps tendon. But I kept going, of course. Hardcore CrossFit, And I tore the other one, and I stopped, and I couldn't even raise my arm above my head, right? So I didn't want surgery. So, a guy named Dr. Steenblock in San Clemente, he's one of the founding stem cell researchers in the U.S., he put what's called Wharton's jelly in my shoulders, and then I just instinctively said, okay, I'm going to use our laser therapy to kind of stimulate the cells. And then within 4 months, I was doing, clean and jerks again without any pain. And that was like 2015, 8 years ago. And to this day, it's like it doesn't pop or click anymore. I'm not doing CrossFit anymore, but I can pretty much do any movement in the gym, without it hurting, So this stuff really works. So I started treating other.
What program are you following now?
Right now I'm doing just traditional powerlifting, squat, dead, bench.
But you've been a power athlete guy for a long time.
Yeah, I did train heroic for a few. I got my son on it. My son's high school football team is on it. Their coach is Aaron Craver. He played for the Broncos, and I said,
nice.
Dude, I'm friends with the guy who made this, program. Yeah. But yeah, so I switched between right now. I did my first powerlifting meet. It was a master's division. Last year I was 53. I won my division because I was the only one in my age division. So yeah.
Nice.
And then I trimmed down in the summer because I was a fat bastard. I was like 202 at 5'9", but a lot of fat. So I trimmed down. I'm 25 pounds less now, and I did a train heroic, and then now I'm bulking up again. But I want to do like a lean bulk now. So nice. Yeah. So no, I switch between right now just powerlifting, train heroic, just to switch things up. And I did take up surfing last summer. So yeah, just it's on my bucket list. So yeah. But anyways, back to the stem cells. So when we did the laser therapy, this healthcare attorney named Ted Wentworth from Newport Beach, he does a lot of healthcare research as an attorney. And I was doing laser on this dentist in my office, and he said, you know what? That laser is probably stimulating, stem cells. That's probably the mechanism of healing. And back then I heard about stem cells, but I didn't know, how to actually use them until my shoulder. But I've heard a lot of people and patients, they've had stem cells, but they really didn't get good results, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's kind of generally what I've always heard.
Yeah.
I mean,
or it didn't last.
Well,
right?
years ago, man, this is probably, this has got to be 10 years ago, maybe even 12, 13 years ago. Doc Includon hit me up and said, hey,
Yeah.
you know, we have access to some fetal stem cells.
Yeah.
You know, I'd like to come out or I want you to come out and we want to do some injections.
Yeah.
So this guy came in with like a fucking briefcase, you know,
Yeah.
like locked to his hand, you know, with like a deal, like a key, popped it
Yeah,
open
yeah.
and pulled these things out. And they injected it back in, and I did not notice anything.
Yeah.
So
Is this intramuscular? And
no, they did it interarticular.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
they used a ultrasound and ended up putting it into my knee and my shoulder.
Yeah.
I cannot tell you any difference. I didn't notice better range of motion, nothing. The comment that I've heard over and over again is I've been very underwhelmed by the results.
Yeah.
You know, and that's, you know, universally when I've talked to people that have gone to South America or Mexico or different places, you know, you'll meet the occasional person, oh, it's changed my life. But for the most part, people are pretty underwhelmed by the results.
Exactly. Yeah. And then in the U.S., the problem is it's kind of still in its infancy. The problem is most of the research and the development of the stem cell called regenerative medicine industry is overseas. So you see a lot of clinics popping up in Mexico, you know, South America, some parts of Europe, but they're starting to get restrictive too. Middle East, like Dubai, and especially Asia. I mean, we're falling way behind. The science of stem cells, you know, Korea, Japan, even Taiwan, and even China, it's exponentially, you know, growing. And the U.S. is stifled by the stem cell industry because
Why?
Well, the FDA, you know, they put the kibosh on a lot of stem cell research. Now, I've been to a lot of stem cell conferences at University of California, Irvine. You know, they have a stem cell PhD program there. And but when I went there, it's kind of like, because we actually treat live humans, you know, with the biologics, but they're doing experiments like, there's a lizard called the X-tail lizard, and no matter what appendage you cut off, it'll regenerate, like the tail, the arm. So they're doing useless experiments like trying to put the gene of how to regenerate your arm in a frog, right? Who cares if you could grow a frog's leg, you know, with the X-tail lizard gene?
Sure.
Why aren't they doing more stuff like how do you actually fix, you know, treat cancer or neurodegenerative diseases?
Well, isn't
you know?
that our model? Don't we always do the animal models
Well,
first, and then if we can prove it in an animal model, we move to humans?
Yeah. When you lived in California, and I live there now, part of our tax money went to, like $5 billion went to this fund called the California Institute of Regenerative Medicine. And it's supposed to
Basically make Gavin Newsom live to be 20 years old by he takes the full $5 billion.
Yeah, pretty much with that hair, huh?
So
Anyways,
this is how Pelosi and Feinstein have lived this long?
Yeah. All those billions of dollars.
Well, do you know how they live so long is because they're lizard people and they don't need the genes because they know how to regenerate.
Yeah, or they're getting adrenochrome or something like that. But anyways, so
Oh, shit.
you know where all these billions went? It went to like build a stem cell lab at UC Davis, you know, research on embryonic stem cells, which is from aborted fetuses, which is obviously illegal in the U.S. for human use, and it's unethical. But they would use it in the lab and do useless like animal experience and all that. It's not going to benefit one person. You give it to me and my group, you know, of stem cell doctors, man, we'll change the world, man. But it's just kind of like these researchers in these big white tower universities, they just want to kind of develop a drug and then sell it to big pharma, and that's how the university kind of makes some of their money. They don't really want a natural alternative treatment like stem cells, your own stem cells, or from a donor like umbilical cord tissue.
Sure.
Because it would basically bankrupt the pharmaceutical industry.
Well,
so instead of taking an opioid for pain.
Well, they make money off of selling you a drug
Yeah.
and then replacing your parts.
Pretty much.
So, like I know for my right knee, you know, it's a kind of a weird deal. Like we were talking about, I'm missing range of motion.
Yeah.
You know, I got that big kind of horn on the inside of the kneecap that I got to get dealt with, and then also the calcification of the popliteus muscle to deal with.
Yeah.
But when I've looked at, you know, come to a couple of docs, their deal is I just replace your knee, and I'm like, but I want my own parts.
Yeah.
You know, 2 years ago, I got a video out of Israel from Dr. Includon that they were doing biological joint replacements.
Yeah.
They're opening the knee up. They're basically grafting a laser on top.
Yeah.
The laser's remodeling the knee. They're putting in all these growth factors in, sewing it up, and they're doing biological knee replacements.
Yeah.
That is like in the future for us.
Exactly.
As long as I have my original parts.
There you go.
So and the biggest issue for me isn't pain. It's just loss of function.
Yeah.
And, I was, I don't know if you knew, Dr. Stedman passed away earlier this year in January.
Okay.
And so he retired 10 years ago. And Singleton, who was his, kind of heir apparent, he's now retired. Mm-hmm. So I kind of by waiting, I've almost aged out of 2 docs, and I got to find a third to go clean my knee out. But I mean, that's something where they can clean it out. Like seeing Dr. Ants with my shoulder, he cleaned out my shoulder and then did stem cells, taken from the hip, and then they injected them back in, and the results have been excellent.
Yeah. Well, yeah, Dr. Ants works with Dr. James Andrews, and one of their mentors was it was Dr. Lanny Johnson. Yeah, he went to Michigan State like me. So, yeah, he's one of the legends in orthopedic surgery. A little old school, but, he believed that you could regenerate knee cartilage bone on bone.
Yeah.
And back when he was doing experiments, stem cells was not even, a discussion. So back then, orthopedic surgeons, to open up the knee joint, like let's say you have a bone-on-bone knee that's medial because you're bow-legged, they'd do osteotomy. They'd cut like a 5-degree wedge in your tibia, and biomechanically it'd open your knee up. But then you got to cut some bone out. Well, he just developed a wedge. It's 5 degrees, and you just put in your shoe, and it opens up your knee. And he has before and after x-rays of bone-on-bone knees regenerating. He said, if you load a knee, according to Wolff's law, stress responds to adaptation of opposed demands. A joint will go bone on bone. But if you unload a joint, it has the ability to regenerate. He didn't know why, but now we know it's the stem cells. So what we do, we actually traction the spine out, decompression. We put you on that knee, the decompression device.
I got to come back out.
Yeah. So when we open up your knee with the traction, that's when we inject the stem cells, now exosomes, so it goes right into the knee joint right there. And then we laser it to...
Do you think some of the lackluster with stem cells was missing the exosome? Because when I originally, was talked to, this is years ago, getting pitched by Inclidon on this, he talked about the stem cells are washed and they're, isolated in this. And then when he called me, I remember, 4 or 5 years ago, and we started talking about exosomes, and he's like, all the stuff that we were washing off that they were calling just like genetic garbage or like
waste product.
Were these exosomes, which were the RNA, which are really tiny, so they move across the blood-brain barrier, but that allows the stem cells to talk to each other.
Yeah.
And so we feel that a lot of the lackluster results from stem cell was that they don't have the RNA there to tell them what to do.
Yeah.
And so then they started kind of injecting the exosomes on top of the stem cells.
Yeah.
And then they actually found out that the exosomes alone were producing a hell of a response.
There you go. And then you even felt that jolt of energy when you had your first exosome infusion, it's I've talked about it. I was on Rob Wolff's podcast, and I've talked about it on a few others. But I had shoulder surgery right before. I think it was in January, December in 2020, right before we shut down for COVID. Flew out after having shoulder surgery to Inclidon's place. He did a bunch of localized injections of stem cells and whatever he's going to do, and he hit me with that exosome IV to kind of flush everything. And I'm not kidding you. We did it in the night. I went home, laid down, got up, and we went to dinner to this Thai place. And I'm sitting there, and I can feel this electricity buzzing in my fingers. And I asked him, I'm like, dude, we hadn't had a drink. And I asked him, he's like, man, some of my clients have discussed this exact thing. Tell me about it. And all I know was that buzz didn't leave me for 6 months. I didn't drink any coffee. When I took all the shots to my head, they prescribed me Adderall. Yeah. And I still have a bottle. It's 10 years old. And I only take it if I ever felt a little off. Yeah. I never even like my wife's like, when was the last time you took any Adderall? I'm like, it's been 6 months. I wasn't even drinking coffee, which is crazy because I love to drink coffee. Yeah, that stuff's the best. We use those exosomes too. We had them third-party tested. That means that you have a lab test the stem cell product that's not affiliated or related to the lab that manufactures it. So there's no conflict of interest. Because if a lab is giving you what's called a white paper, the characterization of the stem cell, the counts, and they're the one that tested it, they can manipulate it. You go to third party no affiliated lab. So the average exosome count in a vial, let's say 1 cc, maybe you can get like a few billion, right? Maybe let's say 5 billion. I'll even say 10. That exosome lab, 1 cc is like, the count came up to like 4 to 7 trillion. So you must have got the 7 trillion batch. That's why it lasted 6 months. But that stuff is incredible.
Well, and then when I came and saw you hit me with it again.
Yeah,
I didn't notice the same results as the first time. And I think when I talked to Tom, he's like, that only happens on the first time.
Yeah, the first passage, that's when it saturates, and the second one. Yeah.
But whatever inflammation I was working with up in the brain, like cleared.
Oh, yeah.
I remember I went home and like I started writing and I was like reading and like my retention was high. My wife claims I was much less of an asshole or more of an asshole, depending on how what time
what type of month it is. Yeah, what type of month,
or just where we are within like our spin cycle of life. But I'll tell you, I wonder if there's like an effective dose. I mean, I just came in, I got that one shot. I just wonder if you got to go back every week. I mean, I obviously, price is an issue.
The stem cell conference I spoke at last week, the Cell and Gene Therapy Conference from Invitrix, we were all talking about that. There hasn't been a study.
Like a saturation or a load?
Nobody knows the minimum effective dose. So there's like a general,
Well, you did something that whenever I recommend you to anybody, is one of the first things I talk about is with the PRP, you actually put an algorithm together to figure out how much blood you needed to take to be able to get to a certain load to make the PRP work. Because I've met some people that do PRP and feel great, and yet other very lackluster results.
Yeah, the problem with most PRP systems is they don't count the platelets. Platelets is what really does the healing, right? For PRP. Like if you cut your arm, it's a platelets that form a scab and heals the wound, right? Well, most PRP systems maybe take 10, 20, 30 cc's of blood, spin it, and you're left with a few cc's of PRP, let's say 5 cc's or even. But we take up to 60 to 120 cc's of blood, and we could get about, on average, 3 billion platelets. We spin it twice, so theoretically you're going to get a more therapeutic effect with the high platelet count. That's called a true dose PRP method that we used. So, but that being said, I think the next thing, this could be even more powerful than the exosomes, is what's called V-cell therapy. V-cell stands for very small embryonic-like stem cells. So when we were in our mom's womb and we were fetuses, we were made from stem cells that are called totipotent, which means that's when the sperm meets the egg and you're a zygote.
Yep.
Totipotent, which means you could grow any cell tissue. You could grow a human, and that's why you become you. Then at the fetal stage, you become pluripotent, which means you could differentiate in any organ, but you can't grow a human, right? And that is a real powerful stem cell because you could regenerate any cell, tissue, or organ. But there's a chance you might you might grow tumors. That's the only problem because it's so primitive, right? You grow in any tissue. And then when you're born, your afterbirth tissue, the amniotic fluid, the placenta, the umbilical cord, that's actually called adult stem cells. There's a misnomer. You don't have to be 18 years old to be called an adult stem cell. When you're born, that tissue is adult stem cell because it's already matured, which means it's multipotent. It could only differentiate into certain tissues, usually soft tissue, muscle, bone, fat, cartilage, maybe nerve tissue, right? So that's safe for soft tissue injuries, right? And that's what we use right now, all right? So let's go back in the history of stem cells in the U.S. The first FDA-approved stem cell procedure is called taking stem cells from your bone marrow. They drill your hip, suck out your bone marrow blood with a cannula. Yeah,
that's what I had. Dr. Parita did that, and then also Dr. Ants did that to me.
Yeah, me and Dr. Joe Parita, we're going to do research on the V cells and stimulate with laser. I just talked to Joe yesterday.
As I tell you, as I told somebody yesterday, when you push out to the fringe, it's 1 degree of separation.
There you go. And he's from Long Island like me too. Anyways, so you take it, and then The bone marrow stem cells is rich in hematopoietic stem cells. So you can make red blood cells. It has white blood cells like leukocytes for immunity, right? So it's FDA approved if your child has leukemia or blood cancer. So what they do is they zap you with chemotherapy, and that basically, kills your dysfunctional stem cells and immune system and repopulate your immune system with your own bone marrow derived stem cell blood, or a donor if yours is no good.
Sure.
However, unfortunately, that's really the only FDA approved stem cell therapy, all right? And then we have a doctor discovered, a Korean cosmetic surgeon. He was training these U.S. doctors how to do liposuction, right? Mm-hmm. And the U.S. doctors would throw the fat away.
Yeah.
What are you doing? Those are golden cells. What do you mean? There's stem cells in your fat.
Yeah, that's the brown fat, right?
Well, brown fat is what burns fat when you sleep, which is the best way.
So
no, there are stem cells in your fat.
So Dr. Parita, when I went to go see him, he talked about that there was fat for scaffolding that he needed.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so I remember he did like a little incision. He was trying to like look around to try to get that fat, and I didn't have any.
Yeah, yeah.
And I was like, "What are you talking about? I got plenty." And he's like, "You have a different type, like that's
brown
like
fat." Yeah.
Like he called it like old brown fat. Like it's from people that have been fat for a long time.
Yeah, that's the fat, the good fat that burns fat when you sleep. Okay. Yeah. It has more mitochondria. So, what he discovered was you can separate your fat cells from your stem cells in your fat. And so a bunch of doctors did that. And then there's a higher stem cell count called mesenchymal stem cell that forms soft tissue.
Okay.
A lot more than bone marrow. All right. So doctors were starting to do in the fat. But theoretically, if you're unhealthy, if you have like the bad type of fat, a lot of fat tissue is not just eating too many calories. A lot of it is, there's a lot of toxins in our food and water, mm-hmm. especially processed foods. So the way your body protects yourself from those toxins, it surrounds it by adipose tissue and stores as fat. So you can have kind of like toxic, unhealthy stem cells that you're, injecting back inside you or to a donor. Another theory is the older you get, kind of like the older your stem cells are, mm-hmm. so it's not as effective, all right?
Well, yeah, because, I mean, obviously, like stem cells, like age, it's kind of like the immune system, like the most powerful outlet you have in immune function is age. The younger you are, the more, immune system strong you are.
There is a Korean company, they make something called the stem cell machine, so they do make it's called stromal vascular fraction. Your adipose-derived stem cells more effective. They wash it, clean it out, more effectively. So there's a group in California called the Cell Surgical Network. They have that stem cell time machine. Just makes it more efficient, the processing, a more clean product. So the FDA tried to shut them down. They sent a letter, Dr. Lander and Berman, the late Dr. Berman, by the way, but his son is carrying on his work. You talked to Sean, yeah. He was quarterback at Emory, but they're carrying on the research. But so they fought the FDA in court in California. The FDA's premises was you're manufacturing a drug when you take the patient's own fat stem cells and you're washing it with collagenase, which is an enzyme. They're saying, "Oh, you're manufacturing a drug."
Like why? Like
and it's the same surgical procedure, which you're putting it back in the seams. It's patient's own cells.
Is it really like the power of big pharma to like curb stomp everything?
We're going to go back into that. Everyone knows the answer to that. Okay. That's a big elephant in the room. You got to get a big elephant here, by the way. Yeah, and so.
No, we already got a big monkey.
they spent millions on lawyers.
Yeah.
That's the FDA's tactic.
Hundreds of millions.
Yeah.
Billions.
So they got all these PhD researchers to testify against them. And Dr. Lander and Berman, they have like the most legit research. They proved the safety, the efficacy of the cells. They had great data. Dr. Lander, he was the personal physician for President Ford. The guy's, is a genius, right? So they beat the FDA in court.
Oh, wow.
They beat them. The judge sided with the doctors and said, the FDA has no jurisdiction to dictate the practice of medicine. That's the medical boards, A, and B, it's not using a patient's very own stem cell fat-derived stem cell is not manufacturing a drug because it's the patient's own.
Sure.
So he pretty much threw it out. Of course, the FDA is going to try to
and
appeal it at a federal level, but it's a big victory for regenerative medicine. So we have fat, and then we have a donor tissue. So when you have bone marrow or fat, or you get the very small embryonic stem cells from your peripheral blood,
sure,
that's autologous. It's your own, your own. Then we have allogeneic, and that means from a donor. And so there's a misnomer. People think, oh, isn't that from aborted fetuses? No, not in the U.S., although I will say there's probably some human organ trafficking going on, which that can be a whole rabbit hole.
Jesus.
Yeah, I mean, everyone should see Sound of Freedom, right? That's the start of it. Anyways,
my only caveat with that is, as a parent, because I know you're a parent too, I see that stuff and like, that's happening.
Yeah.
But then you're like balancing it with like, how come we haven't started like a Punisher initiative?
Exactly.
Like, why isn't there just a bunch of fathers out there with battle axes?
Yeah.
Like hunting these people down.
Exactly.
I don't, I had like, that's such a dark thing to see.
Oh, we should do a whole podcast on it.
I don't know. I'm just kind of like, me, I'm never lost for words, and like, seeing that stuff as a parent was like so harmful, because I keep thinking that, like as a parent, you have children and there's like this kind of unseen agreement. Like, you're my child, I raise you, I take care of you, you do this, and I help you grow. And like these people abandoned their, Hippocratic oath, if you want to say it, like the oath of a parent, to protect and do no harm and to shepherd your children across. And it's fucking awful.
Yeah. When the opening scene of the movie, it really hit me hard, because I was a missionary in Honduras. That's where those kids were stolen. And I kind of knew that stuff was going on, but hey, more stuff probably more goes on in the U.S. than out there. I'm telling you, man.
Well, I mean, look at all these kids that are unaccounted for come across the border.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean,
that's another issue, man. We got to stop that border, because you got all these counterfeit fentanyl being, snuck over, and then they're selling it to a bunch of teenagers, and they use it to get high. They overdose and die. Yeah. It's like out of control now.
Well, what's wild is. If you look at like the drug crisis, like there's this like they don't have these drug problems in like these countries. Like, I mean, like why is it just unique to these like first world countries, like with the deal? And I'm always fascinated by, by like the drug and this, and it's just, I don't know. I like, there's so many problems.
Yeah. So, Roman Gabriel, the third, he started a foundation called Sold Out Youth Foundation. Sold Out TV, where he goes to lecture in high schools about the dangers of fentanyl, alcohol addictions, you get into healthy activities. There's a lot of suicides going on, and overdoses. Well,
I mean, there's a high overdose in kids, but the suicide, which is wild, and this is kind of not a pet project of mine, but something that I'm just fascinated by is the amount of men who commit suicide in like the 30 to 55-year-old age range. I mean, it's like 9 times any other group of individuals is like men killing themselves. Like, why are men so lonely?
Exactly. Yeah.
And it's I mean, that's a whole other podcast.
Well, it even happens to a medical doctor. The suicide rate is out of control. They're so stressed.
Is it stress?
They got to see 8 patients a minute. They possibly can't do a comprehensive exam and treatment on them.
So you're never really giving anybody any standard.
You're not healthy, right? Yeah. You're smoking and drinking. You're all the doctors at the building we're at. They're taking a cart full of notes home, so they gotta write their SOAP notes just to get reimbursed, because Medicare, they just want to deny it. And then let's say you have a successful clinic, Medicare will just claw back the fees. They'll just suck it from your bank account. That's why I left an insurance-based practice, and we just do kind of fee-for-service regenerative. You're actually making a difference, and you're not, getting people all drugged up and addicted to these opioids. Or, if you take NSAIDs, that kills your gut. You get GI bleeding, cause brain bleeds, all the Celebrex and Motrin and all that stuff. Now they want to put people on like gabapentin and Neurontin. They're not even pain pills, dude. They're anti-seizure medications.
So it's wild on the gabapentin.
Yeah.
I was on a podcast with Doc Parsley and Mike Sorelli.
Yeah.
And they had a military pilot guy that got in a terrible accident, and he actually made a comment. He's like, I was able to get off all the painkillers. It was the gabapentin I couldn't kick.
Yeah.
He's like, it was so physically and mentally and emotionally addictive that like it took me almost a year to get off gabapentin.
Yeah.
And then my wife, she got diagnosed with breast cancer and then had a mastectomy. Yeah. And so they were, obviously give her this, stuff, and one of them was gabapentin. And sure enough, when she got off that, she was having real trouble sleeping. And Doc Parsley, like, he's the sleep guy, had to come in. It's like, put all of his wizardry together to help her with some sleep cocktail stuff. But I mean, I don't think that even though they have long-term testing, I mean, it just like this stuff, like it helps in the intermediate, but it becomes such a
it's World War II medicine. Yeah, you need it short-term, but it's not the long-term solution, right? And because when the pills fail, you go to pain management and they shoot you with cortisone. Yeah, one is probably good for anti-inflammation and swelling and pain, but the more cortisone you put in your joints, because it's a steroid, it actually uses up your vitamin D, so your bones get weak. And your joints go bone and bone faster. It's kind of like it's a fast track way to, hey, let's say now you need surgery, you need to get a replacement. And then prednisone, it's a steroid they put for like disc disorders, degenerative disc disease.
Dude, a lot of guys I know were on prednisone.
Yeah, and then the disc becomes degenerated, and they got to get a 4-lobe fusion with titanium rods in their neck or back. So at the end of the day, that's like the last resort, but if we could regenerate instead of operate, obviously that's the way to go. Then you go to surgery and
I mean, like to kind of bring this a little back, like with the stem cells, the exosomes and all the stuff we have available to us, why is it so inconsistent? Like I just talked to somebody that took a big trip down to a big place, I think it was in Colombia, to have all this done. And another guy I know went to Tijuana and went to go see this group. And whenever people ask me about it, I turn them to you or Doc Incledon, because you guys are know more than anybody on this topic. But why is it that people are getting such lackluster results? Is it the stem cells, the process, it's not handled correctly? Like what should people be looking for if like this is the road they want to go down?
Yes, I've been to a lot of these clinics in TJ Tijuana. I got a patient, he's one of the UFC trainers in Orange County. I think he was going to CPI stem cells in TJ, or he knows a friend, but turns out they actually get lower quality cells from another clinic, and people are not really getting the results, and they overcharge you like, 20, 30 grand. It's really not worth it. And then I'm actually influencer at Bioaccelerator. I think they do have a great stem cell program because they're out of the U.S. They're allowed to expand the stem cells, which means
they culture them.
Yeah, they culture them to increase the number count, right?
Yeah, but like explain that to me, because whenever I hear it, it sounds like that movie Multiplicity. Remember where like the copy of like the first copy was good of the original, but then the copy of the copy wasn't as good, and by the time they went to the copy, the thing was a mess.
So here's the thing: it's called passages. The amount of copies that the original stem cell goes through. It's like a Xerox copy machine. Now the first few hundred pages are verbatim, right? It looks like the original. But after a while, the ink gets kind of, light, and you get aberrant copies. So, and then it starts fading. So if you passage or culture original line of stem cells too much, you're going to get aberrant copies that are not as regenerative as the original one. So there's a limit to passages. You don't want to passage it more than 4 times, all right? So they got a pretty good process down there. I've been there myself. I sent Warren Moon down there. He had a good experience. Lee Steinberg.
Oh, you sent them down to Colombia?
Yeah, because Lee was Warren's agent.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I know. And Tony Gonzalez as well.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then, they got a good process. And then I talked to a researcher over the weekend, and she said the most important thing about getting stem cells from yourself or a donor is the health of the the person, the donating it yourself. The more unhealthy you are, the more inflammation.
So you could technically absorb their inflammation and their problems.
Well, their stem cell's not going to be as healthy.
So where are they getting their stem cells from?
Well, she is a cancer researcher at UCLA, all right? And her research is NK killer cells. You know, so it's kind of like the Terminator, the killer, Terminators, the HKs. Well, they fly around looking for,
cells grow, cells die. Yeah. You know, the cells that should die that continue to grow become cancer cells, and then your body sends in killer cells, which is the immune system to come in.
So the Terminator, the HKs, the hunter killers are those, those planes. They look for people that, basically zap them. Well, that's what natural killer cells do. They look for cells that are apoptotic. Those are your zombie cells. Those are your dead stem cells. And if you're not fasting once in a while, they hang around and release toxins. And then causes cancer and all that.
I always remember Dom D'Agostino, who is a big keto researcher and buddies with Kirk Parsley and also Ken Ford, Institute of Human and Machine Cognition. I sat on a panel with Dom, and he made an interesting point once. He said, hey, once every quarter, just don't eat for 3 days. He's like, just like a 3-day fast. He's like 72 hours will clear out all the metabolic garbage. He's like, if you want to work out, exercise, whatever, just get up on a Friday morning, go to bed Thursday night, don't eat Friday, don't eat Saturday, wake up, eat Sunday or Monday morning. He's like, if you did that once a quarter, he's like, the amount of health in terms of clearing out metabolic garbage and kind of avoiding some of these problems, you'd be amazed at what that can clear up. So I try to do that, maybe 3 or 4 times a year.
Well, I just kind of do a 16-8 fast where 16 hours you eat nothing, but your feeding window is 8 hours. But if you do that year round, your body kind of builds up resistance. So I kind of cycle that, right? So anyways, the new way to do the stem cell, people are starting to, like you said, not do the whole stem cell therapy. Typically it's umbilical cord blood. And again, that has good immune stem cells, white blood cells, red blood stem cells for red blood cell reformation. It is a good anti-inflammatory. So it's good to IV because it's a blood product and it's homologous. So you can put it in your vein, which is a blood.
Well, I mean, with stem cells, is it better to do them localized? Like, for example, if I have a joint issue, do you put them in the joint? But then I guess, if you had something physically wrong with you, like systemically, and you enter, stem cells through the, into the body through an IV. I mean, how do you know? Like there's no assurance that the stem cells are going to go where you need them to go because they're going to kind of go to wherever the biggest fire is first.
So that's
right?
what I basically talk about in my new book, Star Trek Stem Cell Signaling. I talk about the signaling, how the stem cells are signaled to home in on the tissue that's damaged, disease, or is inflammation. So theoretically, if stem cells home, then if you IV it and you have a bum knee in the right side, they're going to home in and regenerate it, right? But it depends on what type of stem cell you're using. Now, the signaling mechanism of the stem cell is exactly the exosome. So now a lot of doctors, why are you injecting the whole stem cell when you could just inject the signaling molecules that the stem cell releases at the end of the day? So there's less chance of cross-contamination, graft versus host disease. You don't really have to do tissue matching, which you really don't anyways, because umbilical cord derived stem cells are unique. They're called immune evasive, which means you can get umbilical cord stem cell tissue, it's called Wharton's jelly, from the cord, or blood from any donor. And you don't have to do a blood match. It's called HLA blood match typing. There's 12 tests. You don't have to. And then you don't have to do a tissue match because the blood and tissue, immune evasive means, so
where I mean, like if I were to come to your clinic and get Wharton's jelly injected, where do you get the Wharton's jelly?
So again, we're going to talk about the donor process. Okay. So they're pre-screened and probably 90% are rejected because you have to be very healthy, lifestyle, risk factors. They test for viruses, diseases, right? So the way it works is when the umbilical cord is attached to the mother, to the baby, all right? The only way the baby gets nutrition, blood, stem cells, is through that umbilical cord, all right? Now, if you think about it, the baby is from the father and the mother, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, in a sense, the father he's allogeneic, which means he's not connected to the baby, but half his DNA is being transferred to him, right?
Mm-hmm.
During the birthing process. So if the baby rejected the umbilical cord cells, blood, nutrition from the mother, it will die, all right? Even the mother is half not related to the baby, right? It's half the father, half the mother's gene, right?
Sure.
So umbilical cord tissue and cells and blood is unique where it cannot cause rejection. Otherwise, the baby would die.
Sure.
The baby's the donor in this case.
Sure.
All right. No, the baby's the recipient and the mother's the donor. All right. So during the time after the mother is born, the surgeon clips the cord. Normally they throw it away because they thought it was medical waste. They didn't know there were usable stem cells. Now mothers, they could freeze it. They bank it.
We did that.
Yeah. So when the baby's older, they could use it and regenerate themselves. Or they send it, they could donate it. Like, you know, when you renew your driver's license, they ask you, would you like to be an organ donor? And people do, I'll donate my eyes or kidneys. So certain tissue doesn't have to go through matching like the umbilical cord. It's beautiful. And it's not going to cause rejection, graft versus host disease. It's like the ideal tissue because it's very young, right? Mm-hmm. So, the health of the donor, this UCLA researcher said is the most important. So when she does NK killer cell therapy for cancer, I mean, it's cool at the conference. She is on a big slide. I'll send you the video of the NK cells eating cancer cells, solid tumor cells, not just blood cancers.
Well, I mean, that's what ideally.
Yeah. What is UCLA doing anything with it? Are they getting FDA approved as a therapy?
Well,
so you know what she's doing?
Let's get back to this.
Yeah. So now she's in Cancun setting up
and I know this because
overseas,
because of Wade's Army, the cancer charity that we've done.
Yeah.
The business of cancer is a multi-trillion-dollar business.
Probably the most profitable.
It is
more than opioids.
And they I know this sounds extremely callous.
Yeah.
They don't make money curing patients.
Exactly. Yeah.
They make money in the treatments and the research.
Yeah. That being said, if you actually cure something in a universally funded study lab, you get no funding the next year. Yeah. So it's always like, we're on the brink of growing this lizard tail. If
they come in and they can cure it, and it's so fucked.
It is,
especially with working with neuroblastoma and this. I mean, the drugs and the treatments, and then the fact that they fight to get these people into trials so that they can try this and this and this, and then they end up losing them all. And it's extremely ugly. Yeah. And the problem is that the model they're using is so broken. It's literally like research for drugs. Yeah. It has to be a drug fix where that's failed. We've lost that war. Why not look for other ways to do this? Could it be, I like Tom's deal where they, analyze the blood, figure out what reacts to it, nutrition, exercise. I mean, all these other things that are outside that improve upon health. Yeah. And then when you talk about, that's not proven to work. Well, your shit doesn't work either.
Yeah. So let's talk about that. So people are like, the laser stem cell, prove it works. It's placebo. All right. Okay.
Do people actually say it's placebo?
Some people do, yeah.
Well, I mean,
but here's the deal: if it took that injection of stem cell to trigger the patient to believe it worked, I'll take a placebo all day.
Well, I mean, so to kind of skate back a little bit, you develop that AI to figure out how much blood needed to be taken, and then you're real sharp too in that you're using like papaya enzymes to try to jack up the platelet count to make the PRP more valuable. Yeah. How come we haven't done something like that with stem cells? Like if I know that stem cells can heal my knee, right? Now I know they can't turn chicken shit into chicken salad, and I got a lot of osteophytes and damage. But if all of that was cleaned out and they could just put all these growth factors and stem cells and exosomes and blast everything in the knee, they kind of need to figure out like what's the minimal maximal effective dose that I need, because one treatment probably isn't enough. Is enough treatment, but then you're looking at cost effective. Like if one treatment's going to cost me a few $1,000s, and they tell you, hey, you're going to need to do this treatment every single day for 30 days.
Yeah. So let me show you this before and after X-ray of a knee case. I should have brought my laptop; it'd be bigger. But anyways. I don't know if the camera could pan in later, but we can see it. So this is an 88-year-old female. Look at the before
So
X-ray.
what I'll do is I'll screen cap this, and then I'll just have you text it to me,
and we could
my brother from another mother over here.
It could pop up in the screen.
He can make it work.
Yeah. You see the before X-rays, bone on bone. 88 years old, scheduled for knee replacement. Can't go up and down the stairs. Knee locks up at night. 7 months later, look what happened.
Wow.
Yeah.
So for you guys are looking, Doc's posting this picture.
Yeah. Regenerated.
Which you can kind of see.
Knee joint space.
Like the knee joint space is a before, and it looks like on the lateral side, like the osteophytes, and it's pretty
she's
collapsed.
knock-kneed.
Yeah, she's knock-kneed.
Yeah.
And then actually the other knee looks pretty damn good. Looks nice and vertical.
And look at the inflammation. See the white?
Yeah.
That's swelling and inflammation. And look how rough the knee is.
So what was the treatment?
Look at the osteophytes going.
I see it.
Look how smooth it is after.
Yeah. So what was the treatment?
2 cc's Wharton's jelly with sodium bicarbonate to alkalize it. Stem cells are like.
How come you haven't done this on my knee?
All right.
All right. Go get your bag.
Yours is like, you got extra osteophytes. We
I know. I got to get all those osteophytes.
We got to have Aunt shave it. Come here and we'll do this. Okay.
There's Singleton recommended a doctor that he likes who's trained in the Steadman method. So the Steadman method's a little bit different. Yeah. And I realized this because Steady worked on my knee and somebody else worked on my knee.
Yeah.
And at the end of my career, that other guy, I had such bad inflammation that pretty much ended my career.
Yeah.
When I went back and Steady cleaned it up, he talked about the difference in surgery. And what Steady and them, or the Steadman-Hawkins deal, is they use what's called like a heat wand, where they cauterize a lot of stuff so you don't get a lot of bleeding. A lot of people just grind. You get a lot of inflammation. So I got to find somebody in that kind of Steady bloodline. Yeah,
and then I had her wear Dr. Lanny's insole valgus. So the wedge was medial to open it up.
So she was knock-kneed, not bow-legged.
Yeah. So medial wedge to open it up, all right? And then, and 6 laser treatments to stimulate the stem cells to grow.
Wow.
So this is going to be written up as a study because I have all the data.
Was she non-weight-bearing?
I have the...
How long was she non-weight bearing?
This is a weight bearing X-ray. Yeah.
Oh,
when you do
no, but I mean like during the treatments and all that, was she like immobilized, non-weight bearing?
She can walk with a limp. She couldn't go up and down the stairs, and her knee would lock up at night. You know when you turn over, she couldn't extend her knee.
Oh yeah, it sucks.
She could do all that. By the way, we did both her knees. The other knee even looks better.
Wow.
And she canceled her knee replacements. And look how it's less valgus. It's more straight. So I have the before and after X-rays. I have the lot numbers of the Wharton's jelly.
Wow. I
have the data, how many lasers. We're going to write it up as a study. And wait till you see my spine case. It's just as remarkable.
Yeah. Well, do you remember? It's I can't remember the name of the treatment, but they were doing it in Germany.
Yeah, Regenikine.
Yeah, Regenikine was doing the interleukin little pearls.
Yeah, they take a bunch of your blood, kind of like PRP, but they put it in a hypoxic state.
And they
heat it.
And they mix it with these interleukin blockers.
Yeah.
Years ago, one of their docs, that's the guy that Peyton Manning went to go see to fix his neck.
Yeah,
but
I think it cost like $2 million or something.
It was like $50,000 a treatment.
Something. He did a bunch,
and he stayed there until he was fine.
Until he was fixed.
Yeah, and he ended up going back and getting like 100 Papa's John's, so it was worth it.
Came back.
Yeah, he was fine, and
won the
Super Bowl.
Yeah, won the Super Bowl with the Broncos.
Yeah, so
and I think he broke most of the passing records too. And he was 37.
Yeah, he crushed it. So I mean, he was in such bad shape. If you were with Peyton, he was like stuck. And they really helped him, which was pretty amazing. But there was, and I can't remember the doctor that I was talking to, but those guys sent us a packet, and they showed a before and after X-ray of a back. There had been like some professional skier that had taken some insane accident in Germany, and they had taken him to that clinic. and they did a series of injections and did all their voodoo. And the before and after was like, this can't be the same.
Yeah.
And they were like, this is what we have access to.
Well, you got to understand, all this stem cell business started in Russia, the Eastern Bloc nations, Switzerland. I think that's where Manning went. And of course, Germany. And they've been doing it probably close to 100 years, right? But of course, the U.S. is stifled because of, we're more of a Western allopathic, pharmaceutical-based, system of treatment, right? So this regenerative medicine is a whole new branch of medicine. We definitely need to, get more patients access to, so they don't have to fly overseas, right? Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's
dude. So this is L5S1, stage 4 degenerative arthritis. You could see that L5S1. It's crushed. It's bone on bone. All right. Normally, you'd want to do a fusion. You'd put titanium rods and you'd put titanium screws in there. And the screws, they would slide them to open up the spine, right, on the rods. Well, he had severe back pain and sciatica. So, again, Wharton's jelly, sodium bicarbonate, laser treatment. Look what happened to the space after. We got to get this on the... Yeah, no,
I'm trying to take some notes for this. So why
6 months?
Why the sodium bicarbonate?
So stem cells are like...
Okay. So Wharton's jelly is I guess you could say it's like...
I call it a cushion because there's certain guidelines, there's certain nomenclature that is going to keep you out of hot water with the FDA, all right? And I'll talk about those regulations. I've had 2 meetings with them on how to stay compliant with all these biologics we're using. So, stem cells, they're like the SEAL teams, right?
Yeah.
Or special forces. You drop them in a hostile environment. I just saw Black Hawk Down yesterday again.
Nice.
They'll probably won't survive, but they'll kill enough of the bad guys to do their job, right? And then, they'll probably be run over and die, or maybe they'll escape, hopefully. Because most Americans are so unhealthy, you drop the stem cell in a toxic body, they ain't going to last that long. Our joints are very acidic, so sodium bicarbonate is basically baking soda, but it's pharmaceutical grade. Yeah. It makes a alkaline environment for the stem cells to survive. Talk to any farmer. The water's alkaline, their vegetables grow better, all right?
Well, it's just like my mom. I mean, old wives' tale. If you had an indigestion, you take a scoop of baking powder and water and drink it down.
So the water is like, it's kind of like the SEALs. They drop them 10 miles out in the water. They could sneak up, right, and then kill the bad guy, right? And then we inject ozone too, and that's our AC-1 gunships, air support. And the ozone makes and also...
Are you injecting the ozone intra-articular?
Yeah, we do now. Yeah, yeah. It could be IV through something called EBU, extra, corporeal.
Yeah, no, and I mean, I've seen people even do, keister it.
Yeah, there's a Dr. Schallenberger. He practiced in California, and he was doing ozone therapy for like cancer, autoimmune, getting great results. Of course, the California board decided to reprimand his license, so he went to Vegas, and they're more open-minded to alternative medicine. Now he's doing ozone, so I learned a bunch of stuff from him. So the ozone, when you inject it in your joint or body, actually, it turns into like peroxide, like hydrogen peroxide, which it's an antiseptic. Yeah. Actually, hydrogen peroxide, it's healthy for your gut acid.
Dude, I used to go see a naturopath when I was in California when I was playing. Yeah. And he would inject into my knee ozone. Yeah. God, what was it called? It was they were horse vitamins.
Okay.
They were, and like it was this like
DMSO.
No, well, it wasn't DMSO, but it was God, I can't remember it'll come to me in a second.
And it's not I remember.
No, it was this horse stuff that he got from because I used to own race horses, and so it was funny because they used to do a bunch of joint injections on the horses. Yeah, yeah. So I started rapping with the vet.
Dude, that's where all this stuff came.
Dude, I started rapping with the vet, and he was like, I'm going to give you a big bottle of this. He's like, inject it in your knees. Yeah. And so I'd go to this guy, and he would inject it in articular.
Yeah.
and then he would do prolotherapy. So do B vitamins, and then he would inject ozone throughout the knee.
Yeah.
And like it was really, really helpful for, cause I had a tear in one of my ligaments. I had a tear in the cartilage, fixed all the cartilage tears. The problem is I had so much inflammation on my knee for so long, it just crystallized.
Yeah. Yeah. And, that's why we didn't do the Wharton's jelly procedure like that on you. Cause you're not a bone on bone 88-year-old. You know, we need to fix all the calcific spurs first.
So something, I don't know what it is about my body, but my body lays down osteophytes. And what it does is it limits range of motion because my body is much smarter than I am. It knows that I'm going to fuck myself up.
Well, it's Wolf's Law.
Oh no, it's literally
law,
like I know that I have this symbiotic relationship with like, you know, the soul and this vessel. This vessel is much smarter than the soul. And it's like, John's going to fuck himself up. So why don't we just start laying down osteophytes and we'll limit range of motion so he can't hurt himself.
Yeah. I mean, you have more undue stress there, and that's the body's way to kind of brace or protect itself. Like when you lift weights, you get the calluses, right?
Yeah.
And that could calcify, but when you stop lifting weights, it gets soft, it falls off. So once we get your knee decompressed, you know, obviously the body will resorb the calcium, and you know, you have a more functional knee. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So with the stem cells, is there like because I mean like you said, there's people that are doing all this stuff, you know, bioaccelerator there.
Yeah.
Like does it come down to the quality of the stem cell? Does it come down to the procedure? Does it come down to the health of the individual, or is it just everything?
Yeah, everything. That's why we make our patients, you know, lose a bunch of weight, not just to take the pressure off their joints, but it's a great detox because you got so many toxins in your fat. And
so what are you doing for detox?
I'll be honest, the average American, they're not going to follow proper diet and exercise, right? I mean, there's so many diabetics, pre-diabetic, high blood sugar. So semaglutide or tirzepatide peptide, weight loss peptides.
I've seen those.
Agonists,
I've seen those a lot in the news lately.
Do they work? Yeah.
Well, I know they work, but the amount of like at least the boogeyman side effects that I've been seeing.
Yeah. Here's a problem. Ozempic, the dose is too high. I think it's like 10 milligrams or something. And so we give them microdosing. Again, it's called hormesis, is giving something. You stress the body with the minimal dose to get the maximal effect, right? Mm-hmm. So we start with a very low dose. You cannot have a history of medullary thyroid cancer. That's really the only contraindication. I wanted to see how it worked for myself to make sure it's safe and effective. So when I got fat for that powerlifting meet, I was 202 3 months ago. And 3 months later on the semaglutide, and I switched it to tirzepatide to compare the two. I came down to 177, lost 25 pounds.
Did you do anything different? No change in diet?
I didn't want to change anything. Same workout routine, same diet, but I ate less because it does three things. It suppresses ghrelin, the hunger hormones. You don't feel hungry. It lowers your blood sugar. I didn't crave carbs at all or sugar.
And I know you're a carbaholic. You're a carby girl living in a carby world.
Yeah. The Korean noodles and rice, right? And then all the it slows digestive emptying, which means the food stays in longer.
Sure.
So you don't feel like you eat smaller portions. I think I lost about 5 pounds of muscle. You're going to on a you know, well, when you're going to drop weight, you're going to lose some
unless
muscle.
You could probably, and I don't know if they've ever tested this, if you did it while eating a high protein diet. I just don't know if people have the mental fortitude to eat when they're not hungry.
I should have ate more protein. I surely didn't get 1 gram per pound of lean mass. But again, I didn't want to force myself to eat. That's the thing. It's almost like you got to force yourself to eat. This stuff is magical. Just shuts your appetite off. But now I'm off of it because I know it works. And look at the before and after. Look at that. Look at that fat bastard before. Huh? So I got pretty lean after that.
Yeah, you did. Yeah, you did.
Yeah.
Damn.
You put that up too.
Yeah.
I like tirzepatide better because I didn't get nausea. Here's the thing. It prevents you from eating too much. Like one night I ate because I think it was like comfort food, right? I wasn't hungry. And I tossed my cookies the next day. It doesn't allow you to eat more. You lose weight whether you want to or not. Stuff is magical.
The age old, eat less, move more.
Yeah.
Is like, in terms of, the law of thermodynamics and training, I mean, it all makes sense.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it's, people are failing in the practice.
Yeah. And then now I'm really committed to recovery. So I got the Whoop app.
Yeah.
It keeps me more disciplined in my sleep and my recovery and habits, like, getting sunlight first thing in the morning, get
Sure.
the melatonin, eye mask, earplug, I got a nose strip tape to open up.
Do you tape your mouth when you sleep?
I'm going to try that because
I'm a big fan.
when you do breathe through your nose, you create nitric oxide,
Yeah.
which is great, for your brain and everything.
Yeah, no,
That's how you
I'm a
should
big
breathe.
tape your mouth sleeper. I don't do it every single night, but
Yeah.
for the most part,
Like before, I was a 3 days of training, 3 on 1 off guy, 3 on 1 off my whole life. Like a lot of people, you have to push them to exercise. I'm one of those. You have to push me not to.
Yeah.
You have to push me to take a day off. So, but now with this Whoop app, if I'm not recovered, I'll just rest an extra day, and I could push much harder in the gym.
Well, for me, what I end up doing is I do a full body every other day.
Yeah.
So trained yesterday, and then
Yeah.
today I just do all my aerobic work. So
Yeah.
I kind of make sure and we've been really pushing a lot of the zone 1, zone 2, zone 3, zone 4, and tracking heart rates, because I've been working with these pro fighters. And, we'll do a full body Monday, Wednesday, Friday,
Yeah.
Sunday, Tuesday, Thursday. It just goes every other day
Yeah.
is a full body.
And
And
then
then it allows me to kind of go and the only issue I get is if I get into train with weights in the morning and then the guys come and then I'll go to
Yeah.
jits that night. I'll end up getting 3 or 4 workouts.
Yeah.
And then I'm fucking smoked the next day and I'll be like, dude, I always joke, one of my favorite things that I ask Parsley and Ashley Inklet on all the time. I'm like, how do I get my recovery back from 25 years old and 26, where I could play in a football game, go lift heavy the next day, and I was never sore, never tired? And Tom's like, when I can find it, I'll be a fucking billionaire.
Yeah, that's why I want you to do the new test we have, the True Age.
Okay.
It's called the True Age Omic Biological Age Test. It tells what your true biological age is, not your chronological age, according to certain biomarkers, DNA methylation, and a telomere length, right? So that's a study I'm going to do in myself with those Russian peptides, bioregulators. Because the Russians, they have a peptide for every organ in your body to regenerate it and improve function. I want to prove this stuff works. I'm going to order it for every organ in my body and see what the before and after test results are. Yeah.
Oh shit! Yeah, no, I know you sent me over that. You think you're putting a lot of faith in that test? You think it's legit?
Let's put it to the test,
right,
or let's let the results.
What's that kind of alien Star Trek-y billionaire dude who's like trying to live forever?
Yeah. So I went to the Rad Fest. It's a radical life extension.
Where was that?
It was in Hyatt Hotel in Garden Grove, 5 minutes from my clinic. Right? Yeah. I had no excuse but to go.
So these radical life extension people are going to a hotel in Garbage Grove.
It's a different group than people who go to like the American Academy of Anti-Aging Medicine, where that's mostly doctors learning how to do anti-aging
This is
medicine.
a bunch of like rich people that are just looking for biohacks.
Well, a lot of them. One of them was my patient. He put a down payment, $100,000. He's going to have the Han Solo cryofreeze treatment.
Where he wants to get his head cut off?
Well, no, they're going to freeze him. Like I think Walt Disney was frozen in the hopes that in the future they could defrost him and regenerate his brain. And
Well, but here's my thing.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
Why would they defrost you?
Well, remember Avengers, Captain America, after 60 years, they brought him back to life.
But I mean, he was the only guy with the super serum, right?
Yeah.
So just like some random douchebag.
It's their hope.
Yeah,
So
some random douchebag billionaire, right? Think about this. He pays his money, gets his head frozen.
Well,
every year, his relatives probably get some bill for the electricity to keep his head frozen. And then 60 years from now, they're like, hey, we can bring him back. And you know what the kids are going to say? Well, we got to bring this old dinosaur back.
Yeah, there's... I spoke there, but on the stem cells, but there's some people that are kind of out there. They're really extreme. Like there's a guy named Ray Kurzweil, right? And he wants to create the singularity where I don't know, you could download your consciousness on a computer and you live forever, stuff like that, which is kind of kooky. But some people are like that. But it's like, are you going to have enough for retirement if you do live that long? It's
Sure.
like, that's an issue. And then there's a population issue too. If everyone's living forever, look at the resources are limited.
Yeah.
It's
if you look at the data right now, men are going to die of two things. It's either heart attack or cancer.
Yeah.
If you read any of the Finnish studies on saunas and exercise and aerobic too, all that stuff, you can pretty much eliminate having a heart attack. You get in a, over 174 degree sauna, for 50, 60 minutes a week, and, make sure you get a nice big aerobic base and you lift some weights and don't eat like an asshole and sleep.
Yeah.
Right. You're probably going to avoid heart attack.
Yeah.
So it really comes down to cancer. And the cancer thing is really scary because the environmental toxins, the things that we can't control, it's always great whenever I get to sit with Inky and rap about this, and he just kind of I just end up feeling more and more gloom because, you go out, you filter your water, you try not to wear a bunch of, polyester stuff. You're not eating your food out of plastic. You're not drinking out of water bottles. You're doing all these things.
Yeah.
And it, could be the fact that the rain comes down, it's up in the clouds. It could be in the soil and the water. When we first moved out here to Texas, we took the kids and went swimming in this water hole. And all the kids got sick. We took them to the doc, and the doc's like, don't go swimming in any of the creeks or anything after a big rain because all the chemicals and all the glycophosphate and all just the bullshit that people use to manage their yards all runs downhill, gets into the creeks, and you basically are just taking a bath in glycophosphate. It's probably the fact that the reason the kids are sick is because they got just exposed to a bunch of chemicals they're not used to.
Basically, yeah.
So, all this stuff, we lived in John Wayne's flight path. I was sitting at Ken Ford's place in Florida, and he pulled up all of the known carcinogens
from the fallout from the jet engine.
Yeah, that basically get vaporized.
Yeah.
Like when you vaporize jet fuel, the amount of carcinogens. And I showed him a picture in my backyard. Where I lived in the back.
Yeah.
Like my entire backyard, I'd have to go out there every morning and hose it off.
Yeah.
Because
is it like a silver dust or
no? It's like almost like a black soot.
That's crazy.
That's everywhere.
Yeah.
And it you spray it and you see it.
Yeah. You are thinking, oh, you're living on the beach, but you're being dumped on by these toxins.
Like the John Wayne's flight path, 300 planes a day are dropping a bunch of vaporized stuff. So Ken pulls up the 4,000 known carcinogens that come with vaporizing jet fuel and living within the flight path, and that was a big move for big reason for us to move.
Yeah, and then we
have all these factors.
The bad radiation from the iPhone. I think there was a warning label on the iPhone. The instructions, it can cause brain tumors. Keep it away.
On the rare occasion that I see somebody actually put the phone to their face, I'm like, whoa! I try to keep that thing as far away from me at all times. I'm like, it's got to be an arm's length of distance.
Oh yeah,
just to keep that thing away. But
that being said, cancer.
How do we fight it?
At the conference, I was invited. The President Nixon Library in Yorba Linda.
Mm-hmm.
I guess they have a conference every few years on cancer research. So they want me to put together on stem cell based cancer therapy, a talk on that. So I got to prepare for that. I'm going to talk about, we already got your bone marrow derived stem cells for if you have leukemia.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's another, I think it is approved. It's called CAR T therapy, chimeric antigen T killer cell therapy. So they'll take your blood and program one of your stem cells, and it has a marker. It's CD, I think it's 9, and they program it to be like like the natural killer cell and eat tumors. I think it did get FDA approved, but that's another promising. And I'm going to talk about immunotherapy, obviously the exosomes, they modulate the immune system, all right, at systemic level, and talk about the big elephant in the room is lifestyle. I call it ancestral living. We got to, let's go back to these people who want to live forever, right? So there's this guy named Aubrey DeBreeze. He has this long beard, and he thinks we could live forever. He says there's this insect called the Hydra. It doesn't die. It's thousands of years old. So he thinks we could somehow genetically modify ourselves. But the thing is, dude, I don't know if I would want to live forever, right?
I'm with you, dude.
Yeah.
I always think too, I mean, like my mom's 80, 84.
Yeah.
And the hardest thing she runs into is that you get to a certain point where anybody that you knew, anything that you shared anything with, your family, all these, like your brothers and your sisters, all these people that you share these moments are gone.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And, she's outlived, all of her brothers and, my dad and this and like, all the people she's close to. She's like, what time does is you get to a certain age and it just steals everything from you.
Yeah.
And then you get to the point where like, what, you're going to live forever. It would only work to live forever if you could stay young forever, where you could constantly be.
And so, most of my patients, they're pretty well off. I got to practice in Orange County in the Palm Desert.
Just working on them old golfers.
Yeah, I mean.
Playing Thunderbird.
Yeah. But, a lot of them, they work their whole lives. And, they want to golf pain-free, play pickleball, tennis. But if you go there, everyone's hobbling around on a walker or a wheelchair or, they got a walking stick or cane or something like. I was amazed. I was reading.
Well, I mean, but that's because like lifting weights. I honestly think like the fountain of youth is lifting weights and training.
Yeah.
Like if you lift weights and you train, like your ability, and we really haven't seen, like we've seen it in some people.
Yeah.
Like the Jack LaLanne's and these other people that were really fit for a long time. But now that it's kind of entered like more mainstream culture, we're going to see people that were, pretty fit in their 20s and 30s all of a sudden get into their 60s and 70s and 80s. And hopefully if we can, make sure that the parts are still working well.
Yeah. So the human lifespan is about 120, right? But the problem is what type of 120 it is. Now, most of my patients are 80s, 90s, and they're all disabled with these bone-on-bone knees and spines and all that. But fortunately, with this technology, some of them we could actually regenerate their function, right? And let's talk about the conference at the RadFest, where a lot of these people are looking for what's the fountain of youth. Well, I don't think you could technically kind of reverse aging. I mean, that biohacker, Brian Johnson, he has done his biological age test. I think he's like the top leader in the world of biohacker. I think he reverses age like 6 years, right? Biologically, telomere length is lengthened, DNA methylation looks good and all that, right? But his regimen is so strict.
That and also he doesn't eat red meat.
Yeah. So and he even said he has to watch his iron. Yeah. So he's supplementing with iron and zinc and all that. Yeah.
And like I was looking at his training. He does a lot of like kind of banded mobility and does a lot of stuff. Yeah. I want to lift heavy weights, and he's also, I know he's also very conscious of getting injured. Yeah. That was another thing. He's like fearful of like driving in a car or like doing anything like he's not going to go and do jiu-jitsu or get into the boxing ring or go in and do anything that looks like, he's not going to go out and take a chainsaw and go cut a tree down or change a tire because he's so nervous that he might get hurt and get a scar in this. Yeah. Fucking weirdo.
Well,
like it's
weird.
It's
the Bubble Boy. Remember the John Travolta movie? The guy had no immune system. I mean, but yet again, that's his prerogative. Well, good for him.
And you know what's great about our country? Life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. Live the life like you want to be the weirdest dude on the planet. Yeah. Go for it. But people, like what's his contribution that you're wearing some like weird like all the pictures look like Star Trek. He's wearing some like weird almost cheesecloth outfit and he's super pale because he's afraid to go out in the sun.
Looks like Mr. Data from Star Trek.
Yeah, he's doing something weird with his hair. It's like some weird reddish. Like I looked at the guy and was like, this guy looks like if you went out to a bar or you were at a restaurant and you saw that dude, you wouldn't want to sit next to him. I'd be like, we sit next to like not near this fucking weirdo.
Yeah. People get extreme out there. But as far as the aging thing, and because I work with a lot of seniors, I'm looking at their dysfunction, and absolutely. You want as much muscle mass and bone density as you age, because the number one cause of falls and death is typically you have poor balance, you fall,
break a hip,
gets infected. 30% they don't live more than 5 years.
Dude,
right?
That's why lifting weights, having good zone 2, and that's why the other one I joke. I was telling Shanji this at jiu-jitsu. Like you should have a class for old people to teach them how to fall.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
Yeah, like
fall and roll or something.
like or like learn to slap the mat and display energy, but like how to roll, because it's pretty interesting watching. Just like when we do a lot of judo, a lot of tosses, most people do not know how to instinctively roll.
They tense up too much. You can kind of loosen down.
You got to go Gumby. Like I'm so used in football in terms of hitting and falling in this. Like I get thrown and I just go limp and I have no problem in landing. Yeah. But a lot of people like really struggle with that. Like they're not used to being on the ground and getting into it.
Yeah, so I think the longevity is it's no big secret. Let's go back to ancestral living. The first humans, they had to hunt their food. They wouldn't get food maybe for days. So you need to fast and feast. We know they are hunter-gatherers, so yes, definitely meat. Maybe some berries, maybe some tubers, maybe some roots, maybe some nuts along the way. And then until the Egyptians started to cultivate wheat, and that's the first evidence of heart disease. Yeah. King Tut died when he was 17 of heart disease, probably because he was eating wheat products.
Yeah,
right?
Well, King Tut was also had a club foot and a cleft palate and was highly inbred. Yeah. Had a bunch of genetic disorders.
Yeah, you don't want to do that either.
No. But
if you look at the Old Testament, it literally says in there, people don't know this. So it says Moses died when he was 120, right?
Yeah.
You know what the next line said? But his eyes were not weak and his strength did not fail him, which proves that we are functionally made to be functional, all your organs, all your muscle, bones, and joints, at 120 as if you're a 30 or 40-year-old. But what did he do? He didn't have like processed foods. He's probably walking barefoot in the desert, grounding, absorbing negative electrons, which is anti-inflammatory, building up your mitochondria, powering your stem cells. Yeah. He'd eat meat along the way, veggies.
He probably didn't have all the environmental toxins,
all the vitamin D, pure water and all that.
Yeah, I mean, and he's there's a test you can buy on Amazon where you can test the quality of the tap water. Yeah, and it's pretty scary. Everybody should do it. And then we drink, like, we have a filtration system for the water that comes in the house, and then I filter it again just because like seeing the amount of environmental toxins that are just in our water supply, like it's. And this isn't tinfoil hat stuff. Yeah. This is like legitimate problems. Now, whether or not, like, you want to just bury your head in the sand and pretend that it doesn't exist and just go, you're being tinfoil hat. I'm like, no. Just because you don't want to pretend, like, you want to pretend this isn't a real thing.
And then every now and then you'd have to fight, and swords are not light. When you're in battle, you gotta throw stones. You gotta build fortresses, heavy boulders now and then. And you're getting zone 2 cardio. Yeah,
that's that mitochondrial density.
And that's the best cardio. I used to do the high intense, like CrossFit style. I did CrossFit for a year straight, like 3 on 1 off, right? My sleep was horrible, maybe 2 to 3. My sympathetics were jacked. My adrenals were burned. But I'm thinking, I want to speed the metabolism, right? I want to, burn calories, but I did not lose any body fat, but now I'm sleeping. You burn more fat deep sleeping than, high intense. Because your cortisol is low and your brown fat is activated.
We chase that. Yeah. We did that experiment, and you need a certain level of metabolic conditioning. Right? Yeah. You need to hit those, 150, 100 to 175 beats. Yeah. Like, you need to hit that for probably. Oh man, it's somewhere in like 20 to 40 minutes a week. Yeah, right.
But not every day, man.
Well, no, and then 170 plus when you're in that like 95 plus. Yeah. Like maybe at max, maybe 5 to 7, 10 minutes a week. Yeah. And then the amount of zone 2 is anywhere from like 170 to 210 minutes a week. Yeah. So like when you look at like what we really need in terms of like optimal health, it's like walking a bunch. Yeah. Sprinting into the fighting something to the death, recovering, short bursts, and then going back. Like if you think from an ancestral model. The other one too is, and as you know, I'm the longest continuous creatine user on the planet. Been taking it since I was 14 years old. So that's over 33 years.
Are you taking 5 grams a day or 10?
I take 10. 5
Yeah, because you're bigger, yeah.
5 in the morning. And I've been doing that since I was 14.
Yeah.
And for years, they're like, oh, creatine's going to cause cancer. It's going to cause hamstring
kidney
cells,
disease.
Kidney disease. And I was like, well, no, fuck it. I'm keep taking it. And now
it's a nootropic.
You have all of these people that are like, Andy Galpin and, even that hack Peter Attia is like, oh, creatine now, creatine. And like high protein diet, eating red meat, creatine. Yeah. Old man Zangus, take this. It's like, he would say, it's like eating like 10 pounds of, or he said every scoop was like 5 pounds of red meat. So 5 pounds of this, 5 pounds of this, and creatine. Yeah. And it's worked. And now all of a sudden it's a ATP, it's a neuroprotectant, it's all these, health benefits everybody should be taking if you want to stave off Alzheimer's and live to be.
There you go.
And so, that's why, so my claim to fame.
That being said, the best way to maintain longevity in your later years is, where do you think stem cells live? Okay, so they live in the smooth muscle lining called your glycocalyx of your blood vessels, right? They're called parasites. They look like octopus, and they grab onto the inner lining of your stem cell, and they're like pharmacy. They put up drug-like substances to heal yourself as needed. It's like your own pharmacy in your blood vessels, sure. Right? So the more muscle, the more blood vessels, right? The more angiogenesis, the more stem cells you have. And there are muscle stem cells called, they're satellite cells, And then there's your bone marrow. There's bone marrow blood has the bone marrow stem cells. So the more muscle, blood vessels, and bone you have, the more longevity, the more stem cells you have, Mm-hmm. So, and not just the functional aspect is you want a large storehouse of stem cells creating signaling molecules that are constantly repairing tissue that's being degenerated in the brain, your organs, and all your soft tissue. Yeah.
So I think people are looking at it kind of two different ways, right? Yeah. They're like, oh, if I take stem cells, right, now I can heal these things. But the bigger issue becomes if the stem cells in your body are unhealthy, even taking the best stem cells. So it's kind of a two-prong attack. Like, one, you have to make sure that you're strong, you're stressing the body. Yeah. 2, you're not overstressing the body. 2, you're living the best life you can, nutritionally, sleep, all these other key factors. And then at that point, it feels like, it's kind of like, oh, I'm super unhealthy, but I'm going to spend money to get all these stem cells. And then they wonder why they have a lackluster effect.
Oh, dude, the grip strength of the average male in the U.S. in the 1950s compared to now it's ridiculous, like 50% less or something like that. It's crazy.
Yeah, I don't know those people. Those people don't exist in our lives. Yeah. But, okay, so
of course, what's the best way to increase your grip is pull-ups and deads,
So, obviously, stem cells, which are these building blocks of life, exosomes, the information. So, being able to provide those, but you need to have a healthy host for them to really maybe have a good effect.
Yeah.
And it feels like maybe some of the lackluster effects that people are getting is because they're not healthy on their side. They're not doing their part.
Yeah. The two most factors impacting your health is and longevity is your blood glucose levels and your inflammation. So more blood sugar and the more inflammation, and then that's going to kill your stem cells, because stem cells, like firemen, they go to areas of inflammation, but if you're constantly inflamed, you're going to wear them out, literally.
So hyperbarics.
Yeah.
We've talked on this podcast. We had Dr. Joe DeRudy, who is a hyperbarics expert on the podcast. We've talked about it with Parsley. You use hyperbarics as well when you do Wharton's jelly, exosomes, and stem cells.
Yeah, we sent you to the hyperbaric center after. Yeah.
So have you seen a dramatically greater effect in the activity of these cells and these biologics?
Have you heard of the Israel study in hyperbarics? Where?
So I did the study.
Yeah.
So it was the 40 sessions.
Okay.
8 weeks, 5 times a week. 60 minutes on the bottom. I did 2.2.
Oh, man, we should have did your telomere testing.
I did it, and we had Dr. Joe DeRudy on the podcast, and he's talking. Did you do
any type of before after, like blood exam or anything?
No, I did a brain test.
All right.
So there's I think it's called Pro. It's the one that Tom did.
Okay.
And so Tom did brain testing on me before and after, but I also did the EEG testing.
All right.
And it was pretty significant improvement in brain function. and post EEG testing through through your buddies at the Brain Research Center.
Yeah.
So we had Dr. Eric Wan on, who was the guy that took over for Dr. Who was the guy?
Eric Wan was the Air Force. He was in the Air Force doctor.
Yeah, but it was Dr.
There's another guy from Stanford, right?
Well, no, who was the original doc we met out there?
Jin.
Yeah, Dr. Jin.
Yeah.
So those guys had taken over for Dr. Jin.
Yeah.
So those
are good guys. Yeah.
They're great.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's I felt it was wild. I got to 20 sessions and I felt phenomenal.
Uh-huh.
Like I noticed, like right at 20 sessions, like for some reason, like my eyeballs saturated with oxygen and my vision was like lasers.
Yeah.
And I felt great. I didn't notice anything past 20 sessions. So I remember when I called Dr. Joe, I was like, hey, I feel great at 20 and I don't really notice anything at 25 or 30. Like, do I have to keep doing it? And he's like, we don't know.
Yeah.
He's like, nobody's done the research. It's 40 sessions. Might as well just do them all.
Yeah.
So when I finally got done with the 40, the guy's like, you're one of the first people to finish it.
Yeah.
Everybody starts, but very few people finish.
It's a lot of discipline to sit in a tank for an hour and a half.
Yeah.
I do CVAC. Have you tried that?
Uh-huh.
It's like, it's opposite of hyperbaric. Hyperbaric is like you're in a submarine, takes you under. It actually puts you in a hypoxic state, which forces you to absorb more oxygen when it's available. And obviously that's going to make a more healthy environment for your stem cells to proliferate. Absolutely. Wound healing, anti-aging effect, detoxification, oxygen to your brain, post-surgery rehabilitation. And then you have CVAC, which is opposite. It's like it's like you're in a jet. It takes you it's like altitude training, but it's not. It takes you to like it mimics taking you to like 30,000 feet up, and it goes up and down in altitude, and it forces your body to adapt. And what that does, it forces your body to make red blood cells from your bone marrow. So theoretically, more stem cell proliferation, and then it detoxes your brain, your lymphatic system. So if you're not getting deep sleep at night, you're not detoxing your brain. Lymphatic systems don't drain it. So the CVAC will empty that as well. So it's great for recovery and sports performance. It's just a pain to do because you got to decompressurize your ears like every,
Yeah, no, I sat in a machine like that Ankledon had years ago.
Yeah.
All right. So if you were going to live, like if you, and I'm going to hit you with a few quick questions, right?
Yeah.
If I wanted to live to be active and jacked to 120 years,
okay,
what's the recipe?
All right. So I'm almost halfway there, right? I'm sitting here. I just turned 54 yesterday, right?
All right. Congratulations.
I'm stronger now than I was. And I've been lifting since I was 15. Then I was half my age. I think you have to cycle your training, and you have to focus on your recovery, all right? And you're always fighting to increase the intensity, more reps, or actually the weight in micro doses. If you take too high jumps, you're going to get injured. Yeah. So I try to make the least micro dose. I even brought these, they're called fractional plates, like a quarter pound or half pound. That's what I like about powerlifting. They have those quarter pound weights, just a little. Mm-hmm. Remember that Greek story about Milo?
Yeah, Milo the bull.
Yeah, he would lift the bull when he was a baby, and then he lifted every day, and Milo would gain muscle as the bull is getting older.
It's the basic for linear progression, progressive overload.
Yeah,
he got bigger, and the bull had to get bigger. If you're lifting the same weights today that you were 6 months ago, you're not going to be able to put new muscle on. You have to constantly be stressing. I mean, as organisms. So we got to lift. You got to lift weights,
and you're always trying to increase, otherwise your body's not going to adapt. I mean, I don't know if there's such thing as maintaining. You're always getting better or always getting worse. You're always I'm always trying to get that extra ounce of strength or ounce of muscle. Once you're advanced, you don't put on strength and mass as fast as when you're starting.
Well, but for me personally, I always think that like my best is just around the corner because The Rock got in the best shape of his life over 50.
Yeah.
Like there was some pretty, like when I met The Rock many years ago in Philadelphia, when we go to the Rest WD, he would come and train with us. Not physically impressive.
Yeah.
Like he just wasn't. And now, like you see The Rock, he looks like a fucking pro bodybuilder. Now, I know he has a private chef.
Yeah.
I know he probably has access to everything that we're talking about and then some. I'm sure he is hormonally perfect. And he's got everything going. I mean, he's got the money to spend on it.
Yeah.
But, I mean, the guy is in the best shape of his life in his 50s. And, you know, he's... No, we can just improve his acting.
Yeah.
I saw the Fast and Furious. They weren't good.
I hear you. So, that being said, I want to do it, but I don't want to do it turning to pharmacologic or ergogenic aids, right? Right now, everyone's like, oh, you're way over 40, you're 54, you got to be on TRT.
Well, I mean,
you got to be on synthetic growth hormone, but I'll take stuff to signal my body to release more, like peptides.
Like the secretagogues.
Yeah. And we'll talk about that, but I still don't want to throw in the towel and, okay, I'll start doing TRT.
If your if your testosterone levels are good, why go on TRT?
Yeah, when I was 40, I think my testosterone was like, my free was like 800. And I didn't take steroids, or back then I didn't know what a peptide was.
So we started working recently with a company called Wellcore, and they do hormone stuff. But their deal is that they actually send you an at-home kind of like the CGM, like blood collection, and then they test, and then based off of that test, then they make a recommendation. Yeah. And so what I liked about it is if people have a question, get tested.
Yeah.
If it's low, then I want them to have like a couple other options that they can go to. Like, hey, your testosterone's a little off, sex binding globulin hormones through the roof. I mean, there's some other things, there's some other levels we can pull before we go to it.
Yeah.
And so what I really liked was their testing, just to be able to give people some actionable information so that they know, instead of being like, oh, I feel like my T is low. Well, why don't you test it?
Exactly. Let's test it. Don't base your training and lifestyle off of emotion. That's an emotional decision.
Yeah.
Data-based driven decisions. Okay. Oh, I thought I slept well yesterday. I thought I recovered, but no, this doesn't lie. You know, the Whoop app, So that being said, so Michael Hearn, same age as me, 54, best shape of his life.
He's in better shape today than he was in his 30s and 40s.
People are like, oh, that guy, he's jacked. He's a fake natty. Is he natty
do you think,
or not?
Do you think Michael Hearn's natural
Personally, or not? I've been around bodybuilding. I mean, that's, as a teen, that was my hobby. I've been around it. I know a guy on steroids, just the way they act, what they look, and not. I know the look. He doesn't have that look. I think he's natural, but I think he's a genetic freak.
Yeah, genetic outlier.
Like you, huge joints, mesomorph. Gee, when he was like 18, he beat adults in powerlifting, and he was already like, I don't know, 220, 230 in high school. And he has probably perfect sleep, perfect training, never misses a meal.
Yeah.
I know his chiropractor, he's like, because that's his whole life, right?
Yeah.
And good for him, right? But I think people, they don't understand the work ethic he's putting in, But he does not have that steroid look. He's symmetrical, doesn't have like the acne. I've seen him up close at Gold's Gym Venice. This is the muscle quality. You could just tell. I could just tell. It's not that steroid look, not ridiculously capped shoulders. You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
Oh no, he's got ridiculously capped shoulders. Yeah. I mean, so this is my thing on Michael Hearn. One, I don't care.
Yeah.
Right. Like, just like, hey, dude, it's his life. Like, he does what he wants to do. Like, if he wants to take something, who cares? Like, the fact that like the internet's somehow out to like catch him on something makes no sense to me.
I think there are some just genetic freaks out there.
There are. But this has always been my thing is he looks a hell of a lot better than guys that are on a lot of drugs.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Right? Those guys don't last,
too. I know. But if he is let's say he is all natural and doesn't take anything. Yeah. Then you know what he should do? What? He should take steroids.
Yeah,
and win the Mr. Olympia every year for the next 50 years.
Basically, yeah.
Well, there's I've met certain people that I'm all natural, and my comment to them is like, if you're natural, like by all means, go take a little bit of steroids and go win everything. I mean, but
of course that's not his prerogative to win. Well, otherwise he would have. Well, because look what it takes to win these days. Now it's not the guy that's aesthetic. Like the golden era Arnold days, they had the vacuum. Now it's like distended bellies, mass monsters.
Yeah, but O'Hearn's what, 270 pounds?
Yeah.
He's 6'4".
Yeah.
Right? So if he took a little bit of drugs and all of a sudden now he's 280, 290, 300, which he
shredded,
could, and still in the shape he is.
Yeah.
Like the shape he walks around in, when I've seen some stuff where he's got in good shape. I don't think I follow him on Instagram anymore.
Yeah.
Like, why not just take a little bit of something? The thing, and this has always been, we had Jay Cutler and some other people on the podcast.
Yeah.
And it's never, I'm not super interested in like, oh, did you take drugs? Because it's part of the deal.
It is. Yeah.
I mean, I'm always real fascinated though when these guys get into their cycles.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of them lie like a motherfucker.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, I listened to who was it? Tom Platz being like, oh, I took 200 milligrams of testosterone. I mean, they talk about these minuscule amounts.
Yeah.
And then you'll hear somebody like the Rich Piana, who's taking a gram of Tren a week and taking all these drugs, and that guy, I mean,
he's not around, unfortunately. But, but he was honest. He said he was injecting so much instead of growth hormone because you have to inject it on an empty stomach, but he had to eat. It was hard to time it. He was saying that stuff.
I don't know. I mean, it's turned into the stuff of internet folklore. Whether or not Mike O'Hearn is natural. I mean, so you're going with you think he's all natural?
I think he's natty. I don't know. Maybe he takes some peptides. I don't know, but
he looks great. Whatever it is, his hair looks great.
He's the pinnacle of what we were talking about. We want to, because he's super strong too. I mean, inclining 405 for reps.
He's fucking strong.
And he doesn't bounce real strict form.
He's fucking strong.
Yeah.
I mean, the dude's strong as a motherfucker.
Yeah.
I
think he's the pinnacle of what we should achieve. Maybe not at extreme, but increasing your strength, your lean mass as you get older, for more functional longevity.
Do you think Mike O'Hearn can change a tire or chop a tree down? Do you think if I brought him here, he could jump on my cat track loader and move it around and do some work?
I don't know. I think he's pretty mobile and tight when you play Titan on American Gladiator.
Well, I mean,
right?
Do you think he's like a normal dude, or is he just like one of those like really hot chicks?
I think he's
that
pretty
can just
functional,
just go to the gym and eat and just lay around.
Yeah, I don't know. I think he looks pretty functional, but again, that's his prerogative. We all have some vanity. Every CrossFitter is a closet bodybuilder. Well, you all flex in the mirror.
I'll tell you this. I don't know. I don't really care, but I definitely know he's had a lot of Botox.
Yeah.
So I know he's had a lot of facial stuff done. If you look at the pictures, he's had a lot of like plastic surgery and Botox and fillers and that.
Yeah.
So like my whole thing has always been, if you are willing to go get Botox and fillers,
then you're probably going to maybe.
Yeah. Then well, what's the deal? It's kind of like
be on some gear or something like that.
Yeah. I mean, I used to see it with drugs all the time. Like, they talk about marijuana being a gateway drug. People are always like, hey, I smoked weed and then cocaine and this, and they just kind of gateway. I think if you're willing to go and get like a bunch of plastic surgery and fillers and a bunch of different procedures done, cosmetically, has he ever had any lipo? He's like a little bit here, because I know people do that as well. I don't know.
You never know.
All I know is the dude looks phenomenal. He's a big, strong dude.
Yeah.
He's got a good following.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, he's living his best life, and I'm happy that he's out there doing it.
And let's take the other extreme of people who do take gear. But where are they now? Like, let's take eight-time Mr. Olympia, Ronnie Coleman, multiple failed fusion surgeries, lumbar spine. He can't even walk. He's in a wheelchair.
He got bad advice on the back surgery. He should have never got the back surgery, and then they botched the back surgery.
Yeah. And he got stem cells after the fact, which is too late.
So he got fucked up on just bad advice.
Yeah.
If he had known Stu McGill, he would not have got back surgery.
Yeah.
Like the outcomes for back surgery are so poor.
Yeah.
So he got, but look at Dorian Yates. Yates, he's in pretty good shape. I mean, a lot of these guys, I think where guys are getting into trouble comes down to a lot of insulin. And I wonder if some of these guys, are taking so much insulin and then all of a sudden have a diabetic, crash and go, hypoglycemic, and all of a sudden end up, falling down, hitting their head and dying.
Or you lose your kidney, like, Flex Wheeler, kidney dysfunction. He had to amputate his leg, unfortunately. And, a lot of bodybuilders are dropping dead. It's just an extreme sport, when you
fucking, there's no half-assing that thing.
No.
Like, Victor and the guys turned me on to this kid, Sam Solik. who's got some, million followers on YouTube, and started turning me on. And like the kid's 21.
Yeah.
And, they're kind of lauding over this guy, like his physique. I mean, he takes a ton of drugs. I mean, you can see the acne. But then all you have to do is go back and just, if you guys take a moment, Google Lee Priest, 21 years old.
Yeah, freak. Yeah.
Lee Priest at 21 years old showed up and pretty much decimated bodybuilding.
Yeah, he beat Ronnie Coleman twice.
God.
Yeah.
Dude, at 21, he was like the joints, just absolutely phenom at 21. I mean, Sam Solik, I think he's like 230, 240. I mean, the kid trains. He's got a phenomenal YouTube, and he's got a kind of a funny personality, and the kid's just obsessed with training and doing it. So yeah, Victor and them turned me on to him. I think the guy's hilarious. I'm a fan, but and then it's hilarious that all these internet personalities and people like make these videos like he's does he know what he's doing? He's taking too many drugs.
Yeah.
And I'm like, dude, if you would have had a camera on the Ronnie Colemans and the Dorian Yates and all these pro bodybuilders, Nasser and all these dudes, when they were in their 20s on the fight up, shit, I guarantee what Sam's doing isn't anywhere close to what they were doing.
Yeah.
I mean, just the stories are like, legendary. And the problem is that today people don't want to necessarily admit it, which is fine. Who cares? Like, leave it in the past. Everybody wants to, spark this stuff up. But, yeah, man, I don't know. I mean, the Mike O'Hearn thing's interesting for me. The dude looks like he trains his ass off. He never misses a workout, never misses a meal.
No way.
I mean, had a kid, probably never had a sleepless night.
Yeah.
And, still looks phenomenal. I mean, face looks great. Skin looks good. I mean, I know he's had some work done, but I'd like to know what his skincare routine is. Is it lasers? Is it Botox? What is it? I mean, the guy looks phenomenal.
Yeah.
His hair is always a different shade of color. So, I mean, it looks great.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I mean, but here's the crazy part.
Yeah.
Time is undefeated.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to come for us all.
Yeah, Father Time. Arnold was talking about that. I saw him on Instagram. He was looking at pictures of him when he was 20, 30. He'd never imagined 50 years later, he would lose all his muscle, although he's still training, right?
Well,
but there's a point in time where...
Well, he also had a bunch of health issues.
Yeah.
I think he had a valve replaced in his heart. So he's been... I don't know if he has the equipment to be able to push like he used to. So I know he rides his bike and does a lot of stuff. I mean, he's still a big dude too. Yeah. And you know what? I mean, like they were kind of talking about it, but he's almost 80 years old.
Yeah.
Like what's he supposed to be? I mean, Frank Zane's 80. He looks phenomenal.
Yeah. I mean, even Stallone, when he was 50, he's looked better than he was 25, definitely. But he's probably taken some gear. Especially that one Rocky movie where it looked like a huge neck and all that. It's like...
well, they had an interesting deal where they were filming down in Australia, and he had flown in on his private plane with a bunch of growth hormone and shit.
Yeah, I got caught or something.
And they were throwing it out off the balcony window as the cops were kicking in the door, and they were finding it on the road. So,
crazy.
I mean, Stallone's never been... he's never denied any of the allegations that he took performance enhancers.
Yeah.
I mean, shit. I mean, he also looked phenomenal too. You go watch Rocky IV, the dude looks fucking great.
Yeah.
But what's weird is that there's this weird moral dilemma with it. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't know if you saw with the UFC. The UFC is going to break, their contract with USADA over Conor McGregor. They want Conor to fight. They want him to be 6 months in the pool, and now they've kind of gone into this deal. And I think they're just going to say, fuck it, we're not going to have USADA testing.
Yeah.
And, somebody asked me about it, and I was like, I don't really care.
Yeah.
The only problem is, what I don't like about it is if somebody doesn't want to take the drugs, they're kind of they're shit out of luck.
Yeah.
Like the one thing that the testing does is if a guy doesn't want to take drugs, he doesn't have to, and he can get tested, and then the other guy's got to figure skirt it. If there's no drug testing and it becomes a Wild West, then, you either if you don't want to take them, then you're probably not going to compete at that level.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I mean, we're kind of seeing this in jiu-jitsu a little bit, where, they don't have any testing at these events. I mean, the IBJJF stuff will test the winner. So, I mean, Victor gets tested all the time and, trains naturally and doesn't take anything. And then there's other guys that fucking are taking everything under the sun. And it's hard to compete with dudes that are on a bunch of gear.
Yeah.
So, I mean, all of a sudden now you're going to see, if they don't drug test in the UFC, I mean, I'm going to fucking watch every one.
Yeah.
The only problem is, and and I listen to, Gordon Ryan and some other people be like, oh, it's going to make these guys healthier. No, it's not. It's going to make the hits more violent.
Yep, there you go.
And dudes are going to you're going to see people's fucking faces explode.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, but it's, but at the end of the day, people are watching the real life gladiator games.
Pretty much. They want the violence.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, hey, dude, I woke up and I chose violence. All right. So Mike O'Hearn, natty. Me, John, I don't care.
Yeah.
All right. If you want to live to be jacked to 120 years old, we need a big aerobic base. We need to make sure that we're strong and healthy, eating good diet, avoiding toxins.
Ground. Get sunlight. You could ground yourself.
What about sunning your asshole? Have you heard about this one where people are like rolling over and basically sunning their buttholes?
I don't know about that, but
that's bullshit.
No, I don't know about that, but maybe
that's
your
bullshit.
Testicles. I don't know.
I think that whole thing's bullshit. I think it's just a bunch of dudes that want to just lay in the backyard with their assholes in the ground or up in the air. Morons. All right, so we're going against that one. What supplements do you think that everybody who wants to be athletic and healthy and live for a long time, like what supplements should everybody? Creatine we already established on a high protein diet. What else?
I'll tell you what, I take 5 grams of creatine every day, even on non-training days. I take, before I train, I walk around the bottle of 5 grams of creatine with essential amino acids. What the theory is, as you're breaking down muscle tissue, like let's say you're training your biceps, right? Obviously, you get more blood flow there. So when you're sipping on essential amino acids, the blood flow is going to take it there, so you get faster muscle repair. All right. And then I take berberine if I eat carbohydrates. Mm-hmm. Researchers show it's very similar to metformin. The metformin has these bad side effects, right?
Yeah. I avoid the metformin.
Yeah. What else do I take? I'm experimenting with Tongat Ali. Mm-hmm. It's a herb, a root from Africa for natural testosterone release.
Do you think it works?
The first night I ate a woody all night.
Nice.
But after that, it didn't seem to. It did.
So you got up and just fucking pounded a steel spike.
Yeah. After that, I didn't notice much. Maybe I got to increase the dose. Yeah, but I knew something happened, right?
Do you remember a movie cald Real Genius with Val Kilmer?
No.
And he asked a girl, he's like, like, what are you looking for, man? She's like, can you pound? What did she say? Can you pound a 6-inch steel spike through a board of wood with your penis? And he's like, not right now. And he's like, girl's got to have her standards.
Yeah, pretty much.
One of my favorite Val Kilmer movies.
Yeah.
Real Genius, 80s movie.
Loved him in Top Gun, man.
It's best.
It's so sad he got a little Alzheimer-ic,
Well, he had throat cancer.
Yeah.
And so he lost his voice box.
Yeah.
But he's another crazy person.
Yeah.
You're not playing Jim Morrison in The Doors unless you're a crazy person.
No.
And I think those guys, drugs and alcohol and cigarettes and just that life.
It's going to do it, yeah.
Unless you're Mick Jagger and, like the Rolling Stones.
Yeah.
Those guys made a deal with the devil, though.
Yeah, pretty much.
All right, so we got supplements and then...
what else do I take? I take vitamin D3, but I make sure my main vitamin D3 is sunlight. Try to get it first thing in the morning, sure. All right? The best time to actually look at the sun is the break of dawn or dusk when it's orange. It's safe to look at. Mm-hmm. But once it starts getting yellowish, you don't want to look at it. You'll blind yourself. By the way, are we going to be able to see the eclipse, the ring? All right, let's go see it.
No, it's coming.
Let's get some 3D glasses. So that will release melatonin because the light will stimulate your pineal gland. Mm-hmm. And obviously, you need melatonin to sleep and for immune system.
Yeah, if you don't get direct sunlight in the morning, your body doesn't release melatonin later at night, which we were talking about with Eric Wan. And then I talked about, and actually Jacob made a clip of this that actually went viral by a whole bunch of douchebags. But we're relating this story about my dad. Yeah. My dad got... when he was in his 50s, he got a detached retina.
Oh, man.
He was wrestling with my brother, and my brother socked him in the eye.
Oh, man.
And, we used to wrestle pretty hard.
Yeah.
So my dad got this detached retina, and he had to go in and have a retina surgery.
Yeah.
So then, he was an LA lawyer, drove all around Southern California all day, hitting different courthouses. And after that, he had to wear sunglasses.
Yeah.
And so all of a sudden, 2 or 3 years later, after wearing the sunglasses, he got skin cancer in his face.
Yeah.
So he goes to the doc and tells him, he's like, I drove around Southern California for almost 40 years. And what changed? I got this detached retina. I started wearing sunglasses, and the doc was like, "Oh, is there a connection?" And just kind of thought, he's like, that's an interesting deal. That people that wear a lot of sunglasses tend to get skin cancer more often.
Yeah.
And he just kind of said it to my dad in passing. My dad related to me because he ended up passing away from cancer.
Yeah.
And as we were kind of going through his cancer history, when I was out there with Tom and Christy, he talked about the skin cancer on his face and that he had dealt with this. And it didn't really strike until he started wearing sunglasses after he got this detached retina.
Yeah.
So I related this story,
Yeah.
and Jacob made a clip out of it and went viral.
Yeah.
And all these people were attacking me because,
Yeah.
of course, everybody's an oncologist now, and everybody knows everything.
Yeah.
But it does make sense to some degree. And on top of it, I wasn't trying to say anything bad about sunglasses. I'm just relating a story about my dad.
Your body will naturally tell you how much sun exposure is safe, right? You're sun tanning, it's 10, it's 11, your belly starts burning, so you flip over on your back, then you flip over, or you go in the shade, it gets too hot, right? Or without sunglasses, it's so bright out, your eyes, your pupils will constrict to keep out the harmful UV rays. But when you wear sunglasses, they dilate, so you're getting more harmful rays. It's counterintuitive. Yeah. And then you put suntan lotion, which has harmful chemicals,
yeah.
So your body will kind of let you know.
I stopped using suntan blocker sunscreen and stopped wearing sunglasses. And we were just out. We went out to this big wave pool out in Waco, and like a Waco surf. We were out there for 3 hours, and I was like, you know what? I'm just going to see what happens. So I didn't wear any sunglasses, didn't put any suntan or sunblocker on, and I just got a little pink. I should have been fried. Yeah. My wife's like, you're going to get fried. I'm like, let me see if it works.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it does, but what about peptides? You know, we've had Parsley talk about peptides and a few others, but let
me finish a couple things about light in the eye in the morning, and then it stimulates your suprachiasmatic nucleus, which is your biological clock, circadian rhythm. So you know what time it is, kind of important. Theoretically, stimulate your pituitary gland to release growth hormone. Or I wanted to study on that. All right. That being said, peptides, growth hormone releasing peptides, which basically signal your pituitary gland to release growth hormone. So we can say that you're not taking a synthetic growth hormone, which is artificially, and that'll cause you to suppress your natural release. So I like the idea of peptides. There's thousands of peptides, and most are actually made in your body. People don't know that. It's not like they're a synthetic drug in a lab. There's just the exact chemical compound you can call bioidentical. Like, let's take body protective compound 157, BPC 157. It's like the Wolverine peptide. You know, when Wolverine got shot, well, he heals fast, right?
Well, it's because he had a super mutant immune system.
There you go.
His immune function was through the roof.
So you recover faster with BPC 157, and when you're young, your body makes a lot. It's made in your stomach acid, and it helps bone and soft tissue repair and growth. It heals the gut. It helps regenerate the brain and your organs. So it's like the master. If you want to take one peptide, it'd be PPC 157. I think it's safe to take orally. It will survive the gut acid because it's made there, right? It's homogeneous. You can inject it, but I'm injecting so many other peptides, I don't want another injection. BPC, I just take it orally. I have the best digestion ever and best recovery. I remember one summer, I couldn't get sore if I wanted to. I was even doing Jack Street. I couldn't get sore. I recovered so fast.
From doing the oral BPC.
Yeah. And then for growth hormone release, the best stack is CJC 1295, tesamorelin, and ipramerlin. There's actually a formula you could take together. And I take that at night for more growth hormone pulses at night. And then you have, tesamorelin's interesting. That is FDA approved for AIDS patients to burn visceral fat. So we know it does, burn your abdominal fat at a faster rate. In the morning, I take IGF-1 LR3. Okay.
Do you take that before you work out?
I do, yeah. And then GHRP6, I stopped taking that before exercise because I like to train fasted in the morning. It makes me hungry. So I'll take it right after I train and it increases my appetite.
Do you do the IGF-1 LR3? Do you do it like a localized injection or do you do it in the stomach?
I've read that, you got to do it in the muscle you're training. It's kind of pain in the butt. Here's the bottom line. You put it sub-Q in your belly. It's going to get absorbed in your bloodstream. They're going to go in where they need to go.
Sure.
I tried that. That's ridiculous. I'm injecting my, it's like, I don't have time. I'll just stick it in my belly and I'm done, Yeah. So those are the peptides I take. And then I just ordered what's called a selective and androgenic receptive modulator, androgen, called a SARM, and it's called enclomiphene. And what it does is it signals your brain to release follicular stimulating hormone and luteinizing hormone, FSH and LH. They signal your testicles to release testosterone.
How often do you take it?
So you take 12.5 or 25 milligrams a day, depending on how low your testosterone is, right? So I just did a blood test. I'm going to see what my testosterone is, and my dosing is going to be according to that. And I'm going to go 5 on, 2 off, right? Yeah. Maybe 12 weeks on, a month off. And the good thing is I'm still not married to jump in on the TRT bandwagon, because it shuts off your natural production if you get off of it. And then you got to watch your estrogens. And so this will release, studies have shown that it releases testosterone and raise levels just as good or sometimes better than TRT, because TRT you got to cycle on and off as well. Yeah. So that's another thing I'm going to add to the repertoire right there.
Nice. Mm-hmm. Well, it sounds like you got a pretty good peptide deal.
Yeah. And then how to biohack more growth hormone release is, the 75 degree sauna. There, Huberman says if you do it in one day, 20 minutes in the sauna, 5 minutes cold shower, 20 minutes on and off, 4 cycles, you quadruple your growth hormone release. It takes a long time, though. I mean, sometimes it's like torture being there 4 times in a row, but the cold shower helps to get you through.
Do you get in the sauna a lot?
I do. I got a infrared sauna at home.
Nice.
And I make sure I take sea salt so you don't sweat out all your minerals. Celtic salt has like 96 essential minerals, so I'll take it on my tongue before I train, so I don't sweat out all my minerals as well. And I find I don't have to hydrate as much. I'm holding on to my minerals better.
Okay, cool. Mm-hmm. All right, sounds like a game plan.
Yeah.
So, what's up with the book?
Yeah, so after I retired from chiropractic, because all the BS from the regulators, they don't want you to innovate anything, just treat the spine. I'm like, no, I want
to a crack and jack.
Yeah, basically, I want to do more innovative things like laser and now stem cells. So during my retirement, I worked my PhD in stem cell biology, which I just finished. And it's funny, the day I finished my degree was the day I finished my book. It took me 3 years to write, not because I was slow, because regenerative medicine, it's exponentially growing, and there's new discoveries every day.
As soon as you printed the book, I'm sure some of the information was outdated
already. Yeah. And I published this a couple weeks ago. So I learned something, I'd add it. It got to be so big after 3 years. I just got to print it and
and then what? Just do a second volume.
Yeah, but I was able to get information on all the stem cells we talked about: autologous, allogeneic, how we signal them with different frequencies of laser, light, hyperbarics, ozone, exosomes. I was able to squeeze in
nice.
A peptide chapter, and then some nootropics or other supplements you could take for longevity and stem cell proliferation. I don't think I talked about rapamycin, but fasting. Dr. Longo, in his study at USC, that you could actually fast, but with minimal nutrition and still get the fasting effect for autophagy to get rid of your zombie cells.
Well, the best way to clear autophagy is exercise.
Yeah, of course.
Starving yourself into autophagy is kind of like, I don't know. It's like fucking scratching your nuts with a hammer. Yeah. I mean, it just doesn't make sense.
And then
it's like when you look at like autophagy, there's better ways in exercise. I've like any of the rat studies I've seen with like decreased feeding and starvation in this, like, I mean, you might live a little bit longer, but at what benefit? You're going to be feeble and weak and old and tired.
Exactly.
I don't give a shit about that.
Yes, you shouldn't fast that often in cycles.
I still go back to Dom D'Agostino's recommendation of 3 to 4 times a year, just fasting for 72 hours. And so I try to do that 3 or 4 times a year.
And then when you lift weights, you're creating NAD. And everyone's talking about taking NAD supplementation and IVs for anti-aging and longevity when you could produce it, with weight training for free, right?
Sure.
And then now people want to say they want to take NMN, the precursor to NAD. Well, I think the best thing is you're lifting weights 3-4 times a week, and then you're taking NMN. You can just as a boost, right? And then I write about the sauna. 4 times a week, lower your heart disease risk 50%. I don't have a cold plunge yet, but I'm going to get one. I don't think my shower is cold enough.
Yeah.
And then if you get in a cold plunge, I think at minus certain degrees for several minutes, and then go lift weights, you're releasing X times more growth hormone and testosterone because your body works harder from getting you to a cool down to a warm up. It's forcing you to adapt. It's releasing those longevity genes. I talked about hormesis, putting your body through short bouts of stresses to stimulate your body's survival genes to express themselves. Extreme heat, cold, short, intense weightlifting, exercise, all that stuff. So yeah, I talk about all that in the book. Again, anything to signal your stem cells to work better, basically. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Then the FDA regulations, always people talk about. So the FDA has 2 pathways to do stem cell therapy in the U.S. One is they want you to do what's called a 351 IND, investigational new drug. They want you to do a study, right, and apply for the stem cell as if it's a new drug. And then usually a new drug, the typical drug, takes 15 years and millions of dollars to go through phase 3 clinical trials, and it's probably not going to be approved most of them.
You got to put so much money for it to do it.
The other pathway is 361. It does not require pre-market approval with 3 stipulations. The birth product has to have minimal manipulation. You can't add lidocaine or a drug to the Wharton's jelly or cord blood, or you're making a drug, right? And then homologous use. The function and structure of the birth tissue has to be the structured function of the purpose of the recipient. So the Wharton's jelly umbilical cord, it's a cushion. That's why I call it jelly. It's protects the umbilical cord and vein, otherwise the baby can't get nutrition.
I get you.
So you can argue when we put it in that bone-on-bone knee, it cushions it, provides support. But then the FDA says, well, it's more of a conduit. It connects the mother to the baby. Okay, so if I'm sticking Wharton's jelly for a guy with erectile dysfunction and it grows his penis, what's a conduit when he does it with his wife, right? I mean, it depends on the definition, right? But until they take 361 away, we're going to continue to do it under that guideline, right?
Sure.
So people think the FDA makes healthcare laws. They don't. They make guidelines. It's the state boards that enforce it, right? And that's why that group of doctors in California, they actually beat the FDA because, it's their guidelines. They can't enforce the practice of medicine. It's the medical boards that do that.
Sure.
So I think there's, but because there is stifling in the industry, people are going overseas, unfortunately. And not a lot of people can afford or they're not healthy enough to do that. That's why, we're doing a lot of research. We're doing a lot of lobbying. There's going to be a meeting with actually Trump to push the agenda where if he's elected to get stem cells eventually, hopefully approved for.
No way Trump gets in.
Yeah.
No, they'll kill him before. And I'm actually stoked about RFK coming out and running as an independent. The problem is
he'll be killed too.
No, and then we're going to end up with Joe Biden's already dead.
Talking about somebody jacked in their 60s. He trains at Venice.
Yeah.
Did you see pull-ups 20 and
he's on he's on some TRT.
He's looking good, man.
No, I think he's probably the best solution we have. The problem is that, the military industrial complex and all the, big interests. I mean, he's already bought and paid for Biden and his cronies. So all they'll probably end up doing is, they're not going to be able to have Kamala Harris as running mate the second time around. I think they're going to.
She's even weird. She talks in circles.
Well, she's not sharp.
It's weird. Yeah.
You know how she got her job, right?
Well, she was the
in San Francisco.
Attorney.
Do you know how she got that job?
Of California.
Yeah, you know how she got that job? She blew Willie Brown.
Yeah, pretty much.
It came out in his divorce proceeding.
Yeah.
So that's how she got her job, and then obviously worked her way up. And I remember my dad having met her and said, this is a travesty as an individual.
I think Candace Owens should be in her position, man.
Yeah. Well, I just think that Biden is pretty much doing a weekend.
Dude, imagine if Trump and Kennedy ran together as like independents, and man, they'd
Well, all that's going to happen is they're going to suck away the vote.
Yeah.
And you're going to have all the people like the visceral hate of Trump.
Yeah.
Whether it's justified or not, I think he's a weirdo, but it's so high that people are willing to vote for anybody that's not him because of, the way the media's portrayed him.
Yeah.
And I mean, and whether it's accurate or not, I have no idea. I don't know the man.
Yeah.
Has he done himself any favors with his social media and all the other stuff? No, but I mean, they're witch hunting him right now. The fact that they came in and they're trying to say that he overvalued his property and Mar-a-Lago is only worth $18 million.
Yeah. Everyone milks out the tax code.
But think about it.
Yeah.
The only property or like the cheapest property for sale, right, in that neighborhood, it's like $40 million for like a third of an acre, and he has 20 acres and a golf course and all this stuff. I mean, it's $1 billion property.
Yeah.
And he didn't even claim it as $1 billion. I mean, it's comical. And the best part about it is when they came out with this valuation, all the people in Mar-a-Lago went to their tax office and were probably like, wait a minute, if his property's only worth $18 million, mine's only worth $500,000 now. I want cheaper taxes.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's so disingenuous.
Yeah. Well, I'll be honest, there might be a part of time where, the citizens just have to take back the country, because there's only a point of time where, like, 1776, we kicked out the British. They're taxing everything. Like now, tax clothes, let's tax your tea. That's it. And only 3% of Americans, the 3%ers, rebelled, right, and kicked the British out. So there might be a point in time where we just have to get the 3%ers and take our country back.
Well,
and get this. So one of the research.
You're assuming that what you're claiming is that 97% of the population is completely brain dead.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the same people that, I listened to a lady today claim that losing weight was genetic and that you could eat in a caloric restriction, exercise, sleep, and do everything and still not lose weight.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if people are living in reality anymore.
Exactly.
And it's, I mean,
well, you were talking about
the media snow job that they've done is completely just made people like the dumbest people on the planet. I just like it's I have this rare option, like a couple days a week we go up to Shanji's place for jiu-jitsu, and I take my daughters. I take Jamie, and Kelly's can start coming as well. But I get like 45 minutes each way to kind of rap with them and kind of plug in and joke, and it's been really good for our relationship. But I think even as a 12-year-old, they ask me these questions, and they're like, "What's wrong with these people?"
Yeah,
and like they, just like basic stuff, that they hear, and they, always come to me because I'm always going to give them the truth. I'm like, one thing I'm never going to do is lie to you. I'll tell you exactly the way it is. And it's unfortunate that we're living in a time where people are either living in this illusion where they don't want to face reality, or they've just bought into this kind of like narrative where honestly you could do the opposite and probably be better along.
Yeah, and that being said, you mentioned earlier about unless we have changed the regulations of the conflict of interest, of the revolving doors of people working for government employees working for the FDA who go and get a job with Big Pharma or vice versa. And of course there's conflict of interest, lobbying, Big Pharma lobbying, to have an alternative method to manage chronic pain or avoid, surgeries, which you need drugs, you need anesthesia drugs, antibiotics, pain pills, and of course steroid shots. Here's the deal. One of the researchers who spoke at the conference last weekend, John Hopkins, MD, works at Harvard and for the government. So he does research on how can they make Medicare more efficient, because he says healthcare costs is surpassing GDP, which means people won't afford their health insurance. Yeah. And he's saying, we got a model where maybe we can do a cost share program where the patient pays some and Medicare some for their diabetes and heart disease drugs. And I'm like, I felt like saying, dude, that's not the answer. Yeah. The answer is, why doesn't the government invest in prevention? These are all lifestyle-related diseases, you know.
So I was,
but it would fall on deaf ears. I didn't even tell it.
Yeah, I was teaching a seminar in Europe, and we were actually flying to Denmark, and I was sitting next to a guy who was Danish, and he like turns to me after we've been on the flight for about an hour, and he's like, "You're American?" And I was like, "Yeah." And so I'm like, my grandparents are from Denmark, and going to this. And he, after we had a couple drinks, he turns to me and he goes, "How in God's name can you be in a health pool with people that have no vested interest in their health?" Yeah. And he's like, if you go to Stockholm or you go to Sweden, you go to some of these countries, people ride bikes, people are healthy, they don't have elevators, they walk their groceries up, like being fit and in good shape. Now, I mean, obviously it's since changed in probably the 10, 15 years. But these people are a weight upon the government. If you're in a socialized health system and we're in this pool together and we're all in this rowboat and you're, not taking care of yourself and not doing these things, you're effectively a drain on us and we don't want you in our boat. Yeah. And, he's like, was baffled. He's like, somehow Americans take pride in being like the fattest, grossest people on the planet. And it was pretty shocking, but he's like, when you guys are out, take a look, see if you can spot the Americans, because we do it all the time.
Oh yeah,
and we were in Amsterdam sitting at a pub outside having beers, and sure enough, like white socks.
It's not fine wall; they'll find the fat American tourist.
And it's true. Yeah. But now, I mean, it's since changed now. Now in Germany and all over. I mean, this thing has become a globalized pandemic. I mean, we use the word pandemic, and we just went through one, but it's really obesity, sickness, and the illnesses and the drugs and all the other stuff that come around it, and then we tell people all the time, it's not your fault. You're like, well, it is your fault. I mean, so Ozempic isn't magically burning people fat. You know what it's doing? It's tricking you with adrenaline into thinking that you're hungry all the time. Yeah. So you're eating less. Yeah. So you can still overeat on Ozempic. If you don't have that gene where your body tells you it's off and you just overeat, you're still not going to lose weight.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So no, we're in an interesting piece, but I'm stoked that the stem cell, because when I first heard about stem cells years ago, I had this feeling that hey, if there's injuries, this can fix it. And it's just been that the results have always been very lackluster. So I'm excited to know that, there's a game plan in place, and hopefully we can fix more and more people. Yeah,
and we're trying to do kind of give back. We have a program where one of the labs we use, they're donating $5 million of umbilical cord Morton's jelly, which have cells in it.
To me, I'm just going to inject my entire body, even my toes and my fingers, with Morton's jelly.
Yeah, it's called Brothers in Arms. So any branch of the military which is a special forces
or special operations command,
simple operations, SEAL, Delta, Marine Recon, Ranger, what have you, who's active duty or veteran, they can have their cells. It'll be funded by this 501(c) called Brothers in Arms. They don't have to pay for it. Just kind of give back, because these guys, they're risking their lives for us, working for the government. A lot of them don't get taken care of after,
Well, what about one for football players? I mean, they're fighting wars in the trenches. We were putting our lives on the line, similar, kind of.
Yeah, so I was the former wellness director.
I'm kidding. I'm fucking kidding.
Yeah, I was the former wellness director of NFL alumni in San Diego. Yeah. Lynn Hamilton, he played.
How painful was it dealing with the retired NFL players? I mean, I like to think I'm a bit of a unicorn in terms of dealing with this, but even I find it painful dealing with ex-NFL players.
Here's the deal. What I found.
Other than Nick Hardwick, he's great.
Just because you're a great athlete doesn't make you a
good person,
an ethical person, or a good business person,
or intelligent, or a friend.
People think NFL alumni is it's the only alumni association. No, there's a lot of them, right? NFL alumni, the motto is supposed to be caring for kids, doing stuff for kids. So Lionel Hamilton, he played for the Saints when they won the Super Bowl. He was a running back. He runs the San Diego version, and he's legit. He made a flag football program, and he's running that. He wants to care for kids, but other people in alumni, it's kind of all about themselves, you know.
Well, it was like that when they played, and it's just extended.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah.
So, cool.
But just like anybody, everyone's different, but we do see a fair share of NFL veterans, but I do enjoy working with Roman Gabriel because he has the foundation for the youth to get them off of fentanyl and drugs. So he brings me to the Hall of Fame every year, and you get to rub elbows and things.
Nice.
Bumped into, who was the most severe linebacker? LT, Lawrence Taylor. So he might be coming down to get some cells.
Nice.
He didn't know what a stem cell was. I had to explain it to him, but yeah.
He's like, I know what cocaine is, but what's stem cells?
Yeah. So we got two things going. We want to fight the opioid epidemic with the Roman Gabriel Foundation, and then treat the veterans with the Brothers in Arms and go from there. And I think with the grassroots approach, we can get it, mainstream. Like who would ever imagine CBD would be, kind of mainstream, So, yeah.
Well, cool. Well, Doc, if people want to get a hold of you or they want to come get a consult or have work done on you, what's the best way to get a hold of you?
Yeah. So my YouTube channel is literally dryoutube.com. So DRYOO tube.com. You can just put www.drphillipu.com. That's another website. All listeners, what I'm going to do, I'm going to give them a free PDF version of the book.
Okay.
So if you just text 949-910-9664, your name, email, and I'll text you a free PDF version of the book. And then on the website, there'll be a link where you can just get a physical book on Amazon. So, yeah, right there. And then our clinic, we have so many websites. What's our most recent one? www.
You do have a lot of websites.
Yeah.
You need to consolidate.
Yeah. Laserregenmed.com. LASEREGEN med.com.
Yeah. No, if you guys are curious, just reach out to Doc. I know he does a ton of consults. So just book the consult. And just learn more and more. I mean, I've had a ton of people over the years ask me about stem cells and this, and I usually just hand them off to Doc Yoo or Tom Incledon. And, like I said, Doc's always willing to take time to talk to people and explain to them how it all goes. And everybody I know that has gone to see him has had great results and and I'm a patient too. So just to be honest, I go see Doc, but you were working on me long before you ever did the stem cell stuff.
Yeah.
So it's really cool to see the evolution in what you worked on. And then also some of the side projects we've been working on, trying to see if we can cure a little type 1 diabetes for a little man named Cashito.
Yeah, there you go. That's our next project. I think we're on the brink, huh?
Yeah. So just to let you know where Doc Yoo sits in my heart, when I called and told him that, my son has type 1 diabetes, he kind of opened up another avenue into doing a PhD on how to use stem cells and all these treatments to figure out how to cure type 1 diabetes in juveniles. So we've been going back and forth, and hopefully we can find a treatment, and it'd be amazing to come on here and cure that for Cashito.
Just have Cash get his English heritage citizenship, and you get it for free. But sadly, because you're an American, the therapy is available in Australia.
Well, we got a lot of friends around the world.
Uh-huh.
It's
kind of sad that we're the most advanced nation. It's not approved.
You got to remember,
here.
He has a lot of really cool. Cash has got a lot of cool uncles.
Yeah,
a lot of people that look out for him. One of them is Bob Sapp. Bob's like, whatever you need in Asia and Malaysia, we're there.
All right.
I got Shanji and Victor and the guys in Brazil. So we got friends all over the globe that are more than happy to help us in any way we got to go. But man, I'd love to be able to. If I can unsaddle this type 1 diabetes from this little boy, I cannot imagine anything better in the world. If you guys, I don't know if you guys have ever been around a type 1 or had to deal with it and trying to manage it, it is a full-time job in terms of managing his blood sugar, meals, and food. I mean, down to the point where there's nothing he doesn't put in his mouth that isn't at first looked at and monitored and fit within a schedule. And for a 7-year-old, that fucking sucks.
And for the average American who has no idea about nutrition, they're getting processed foods. I mean, you're like
Yeah,
you're way ahead of the game on that. Yeah.
What's wild is the fact that he got it. I mean, that kid eats better than 99.9% of the world,
Exactly,
and he still got it.
Yeah.
Whether it came from some illness or whatever it is, I mean, we'll find a way to beat it, which I really think between the collection of people that we know within the world, and also have sat in this podcast room, I like to think we have the collective energy and have provided enough goodwill, we'll figure a solution for it. So that's the next one.
I think there's serendipity in all this. Like even your classmate, Jerry Maguire, Lee Steinberg.
Well, I didn't go to
Cal
school
too,
with him, but he did.
He graduated before you.
Yeah, many years.
At Berkeley. And then you played for the Chiefs. So here he's giving me the helmet signed by Mahomes right there. So,
good for him.
And we are talking about, cells and all that. And I got a plug from Roman Gabriel here too. So it's a great book for you guys. All right. We talk about, stem cells in sports, anti-aging, longevity, all that.
Cool.
Yeah. All right.
All right, Doc. Well, dude, thanks for coming all the way to Texas, and thanks for tuning in. Another episode of Power Athlete Radio. See ya.